Hello and welcome to this enormous eyeshadow palette collection and declutter video. My name is Rachel. If you are new here, welcome. And if you're not new here, thank you so much for coming back. Listen, if you are new to this channel, I love eyeshadow palettes. I base a lot of my content on eyeshadows. So, especially indie eyeshadows. I have a lot of eyeshadow palettes, and in this video, I'm going through every single eyeshadow palette that I have in my collection, and I'm decluttering some. Now, don't get your hopes up. This isn't like a big juicy declutter. I don't typically declutter like over 100 palettes in my declutter videos. I like to have a lot of my eyeshadows stick around in my collection. So, a few disclaimers before we start the video. The first one is, in terms of what I got in PR and what I purchased myself, I do mention it throughout the video, but you can assume with indie brands, it's usually like I buy about 60% and I get about 40% sent in PR. With the mainstream brands, most of the time I am buying them myself. The second thing is, what do I do with my makeup that I declutter? Well, I have 4 sisters-in-law. I also have a teenage niece. I have people in my life that like makeup, so I let them go through my makeup. If something is really old and crusty, I'm throwing it out. I'm not passing it on, but I do not send used makeup to my subscribers. And things that I get in PR that are unused, I set aside for giveaways. I think that's all I have for disclaimers. Stick around, subscribe, because I will soon be uploading my ranking all the palettes I tried this year video, and that is the juiciest video of all in my opinion. So subscribe if you're interested in that. Everything that's on my face, I did film this look. If this look is live, I will link it down below in the description box, but if it's not, I will list what I'm wearing down below in the description box. I think that's all I have to say. Enjoy the video. All right, strap in. This is going to be a long one for sure. I don't know how many palettes I'm actually going to declutter. This is more of like a palette collection video, maybe with a handful of declutters. I don't really set expectations for myself with these types of videos, so we shall see. My nails don't look the best they've ever looked. Please forgive the polish job. Some of my nails have tips on them. Some of them are my actual nails. But this nail polish is from Cleona and Millie, who is known as BadToTheBrow. Their Light Scatters Collection nail polish in number 2. I got it in PR. So I'm going to go through my palettes brand by brand. That's how I have them organized. I'm not going to talk about which ones I got in PR, which ones I didn't. You can pretty much kind of consider all the indie brands. I got most of them in PR. And then the mainstream brands like Natasha, Denona, Sephora brands, I've bought myself. I'll try to remember, but just know I'm not trying to be misleading or anything like that. So let's start with Natasha Denona. I'm not getting rid of any of my Natasha Denona palettes. I never do during these declutters. It's a brand that I personally love, and I mean, the fact is I bought these palettes myself and they're very expensive. So I have only one of her large palettes, like her big large palettes, $129 palettes. This is the BYO palette, and I am a neutral lover, but I will be honest with you, this is not my favorite Natasha Denona palette. In fact, it's one of my least favorites. I don't think the quality of the shimmers is very good, but the mattes are phenomenal. Like, they are so good. I keep this around because of the mattes. I also really do not like the cream to powders in this. They creased on me like crazy. I wore them in a look and I was kind of embarrassed at how they looked after like a whole day had gone by, but I'm gonna keep this. I actually got it on big time sale. I think this retails for $129 and I think I got it for like, I wanna say like $30, something like that. It was outrageously affordable, so I'm gonna keep that. I have 2 of her like face palettes. This one was from this year. This is the Hyper Natural Face Palette. I've talked about this numerous times now on my channel. It's not my favorite palette, but I do really like the bronzer and the blush. The cheek products are so good. I really like her cheek products in general. And I do like these, but like I personally have to combine this with mattes from other palettes. I don't like using these on my eyes. So, I mean, it's fine. It's just not one of my favorites. But if you are like a one and done shimmer shadow person, you might enjoy this. Then I have the Glam face palette. I actually love this palette. This one is in the shade Light, I think. Yes, Light. And I love the eyeshadows in this. This is the first time she put in like really, really metallic shimmers. And these are so beautiful. and I really like the 3 mattes that are offered. This cream blush has now dried out, but if I work my finger into it and get the warmth of my finger to the blush, it will moisten up again. And this Star Glow highlighter is absolutely beautiful, so love that. Let's talk about some older midi palettes. So we have the Love palette. I remember I bought this way after it launched. I saw it go on sale at Sephora, and I ended up buying it on sale at Sephora. I'll say the same thing for a lot of her older midi palettes is I like the mattes. I think her matte formula has been pretty consistent over the years, but her shimmers have just continued to improve. So I don't love the shimmers in this palette. I find that they're kind of heavier on the lid. They're not super shiny. And listen, I can get down with like a standard shimmer, but it needs to have a little shine. And I actually prefer to have like several different types of shimmer formulas in one palette. So anyway, yeah, I'm definitely gonna keep it though. The Glam palette, I feel exactly the same way in terms of formula. The mattes are great. These shimmers are just okay. If you are more of like a cool toned lover, you would probably like this. If you want just like everyday out the door looks, yeah, it's good. It's just not like my ultimate favorite. The Bronze palette is my favorite color story of the 3, but I feel the exact same way about the formulas. The shimmers are pretty good, the mattes are really good, and this is like a pretty one-noted palette, but I love a warm-toned neutral look, so I am happy with it. So now let's talk about, and then I guess my dream would be like the next oldest, but this is still, I think, a big step up in quality from the ones I was just talking about. This is where she really started to put in different shimmer formulas. There is a multi-chrome here. I don't know, yeah, you can see it in the mirror. It looks like green with like a cranberry type of look. There are some like more standard shimmers. We have some more like sparkly shimmers. There are 2 cream to powders, which I don't love, but yeah, I mean, this is one of my favorite Natasha Denona palettes. I love the color story. And then we have the 2 that she came out with last year, the Xenon palette. Very one-noted, very black, gray, white type of situation, but quality, phenomenal. Phenomenal quality. If this is something you like in your looks, and I actually really prefer this more as like a companion palette, I could dip into this because the quality is really good. The Yucca palette next, or Yucca palette, love the packaging on this ombre, like soft matte touch. And I love greens, so I really did enjoy this palette. I don't like the cream to powders that are in here, but apart from that, the mattes, the shimmers, really good quality. I love this color story. It's more like grungy greens, which I prefer in greens, but we do have like this bright neon pop in here, which is great for the inner corner. Really good palette as well. And then we have the ones that actually, I Need a Nude came out last year as well. Yes, I Need a Nude, love this. And I would suggest this for someone who likes neutrals that lean a little more peachy pink, because I do feel whenever I created looks with this, I was getting that type of undertone in my looks. Really good, mattes, really good different shimmer formulas. No cream to powders, which is great. I appreciate that. And then 2 of the ones she came out with this year, the Golden palette, once again, pretty one-noted, but quality-wise, really, really nice. The air conditioner in my apartment just kicked on, so I do apologize. It should be kicking off again soon if you can hear it. But yeah, I mean, I love neutrals. I love warm tone neutrals. Not a huge variety of looks, but really good quality. And then this is like one of my favorite palettes she's come out with, the I Need a Warm palette. Oh gosh, it is just super yummy to me. There is another multi-chrome, as you can see in the mirror. And I just love a warm tone neutral look, and this is giving me everything I need. There is 1 cream to powder, which is whatever, but the mattes that are offered are all different depths, which I really appreciate. Goes really deep. We have a few light shimmers for the inner corner, so love that. Then I have a bunch of her mini palettes, so let's go through those. I have the Mini Love, which I love, and this one is so beautiful. I think her mini palettes are set up in such a really cohesive way a lot of the times, where you're able to just create one look with this palette, with the palettes, or you can use them as companion palettes. We have a deep matte and a more like light to mid-tone matte. We have a pop for the inner corner, and we have 2 different options for the lid. So I think it's a really well laid out palette. We have the My Mini Dream. I think this came out Did this come out this year? No, last year. Again, I think it's set up really well with the 3 mattes varying in depth, the 2 different shimmers. These shimmers are fine. I don't love them, but for a neutral palette, everyday palette, I think it works great. This one is, I think, my favorite mini palette, the Mini Star. I don't know what it is, but when I used this, the looks I got, I just loved. I love this duochrome that's like a brown to blue, which you see with a lot of brands, but I don't know, it's just something really pretty that I like. I like the 2 matte options, and these 2 shimmers are more neutral leaning. This one's a little more like olive green, but yeah, really love this one. This is probably my least used one. I think I can get rid of this. I can't believe I'm saying that, but like, I'm never gonna reach for this. First of all, this is broken. It came broken. I like these 3 mattes, but this shimmer I would really never choose to wear. I don't like that color on me, and I don't really love the formula, and I don't feel like this goes deep enough in the mattes for me to want to wear this shade with this palette, and I just never reach for it. A lot of it is because it has a broken shimmer, so I am going to get rid of that. What is this one? The Mini Metropolis. Then we have the Mini Bronze. Love this one. It is more matte heavy, right up my alley. Love the different mattes that are offered. Really, really gorgeous. This is the Mini Biba. Once again, we have 3 mattes, a cream to powder, and one of the shimmers. I don't mind the cream to powders that are a little deeper, so I can use them like on my lower lash line to kind of smudge out. I just don't like wearing them on my upper lash line because they do tend to crease on me, but a really pretty neutral palette. This is the Mini Gold palette. Honestly, it's not really coming to mind the looks that I've gotten out of this. Like, I feel like I haven't used this hardly at all. I probably should pull it out and use it again because I do like this color story a lot. Mini Starlet, I believe, came out last year or the year before. I think it was last year, right? Really pretty, more pink leaning neutral palette. This is the Mini Zendo. Once again, I don't know how much use I've gotten out of this. I do remember the shimmers being just okay because this is one of her older mini palettes. This is the Mini Nude. This is actually, well, it's a tie between the Mini Star and the Mini Nude as to which one is my favorite. This one I wore on my wedding day. I just love the looks I get out of this. Just very glam, very soft, understated, yet still like really, really pretty. So gorgeous. Love the 2 mattes. All 3 shimmers are just really pretty standard shimmers. And then this is actually the first mini palette, and maybe my first palette ever that I got from Natasha Denona, the Mini Lila palette. I mean, clearly the quality has stepped up a lot, but I do like that you're able to even get 2 very distinct looks. Like, you can just pair these 2 together for an everyday out the door, sweep this through your crease, put this on the lid type of neutral look. Or you can use these 3 shades for a deeper look, maybe for nighttime or something like that. So I think this is kind of the most versatile color story. But yeah, I'm going to keep this one around as well. So the only one I'm getting rid of is the Mini Metropolis. And in this little plastic organizer, I found these 2 Kaja palettes. I'm not sure how I feel about these. I think I can let these go. Actually, one of my really good friends from home is a bridal makeup artist, and she was eyeing these and she was saying, oh my goodness, like they would be perfect for my kit because they're so tiny. So I think I'm just going to hand these to her, and I don't need them. Like, they're good, I like them, but I don't need them. Like, she would, let me just throw them and break them. She would probably benefit more from these than I would. All right, I have my ABH palettes. I've held on to these for so long. They're like some of my longest running palettes ever. And I was talking to Millie about this recently. I was saying, like, it's crazy how Anastasia was the pinnacle of pigmented eyeshadows, and like I remember using them and being like, wow, these are just incredible shadows, and I just feel like indie brands kick the butt out of ABH shadows. That's my personal opinion, but I mean, they still make good shadows, but the old palettes, man, they have the powdery, dusty mattes, but once they're on your eyelid, it is hard to blend them out because they're so pigmented. But I'm not getting rid of the Jackie Aina palette. This is my favorite ABH palette. Again, I haven't used this in freaking years, but oh my gosh, I remember when I saw this color story, I was like, this is an incredible color story. The cover, look at that. And ooh, you do not want to see me right now, trust me. This color story is just beautiful. I need to take this out and use it again. I need to take this out and use it again, really. Let me know if you still have this palette as well. Okay, this palette is the Fall Romance palette. I bought this when it launched last year, and I really did not enjoy this palette at all. I think the mattes are incredibly hard to work with. Some of the shimmers are so freaking dry, they do not look good on my lid at all whatsoever. Some of the shimmers are fine, but this palette I can absolutely get rid of. Like, I will never reach for this ever again, and it can go to someone else that would enjoy it more. Then we have the Cosmos palette. Oh my God, I totally forgot that I even had this palette. I totally forgot. I think this one is nice. I like this one. I like this one much more than the Fall Romance palette in terms of like one of their new-ish palettes. I think this also launched last year. I like the color story. I wish there were maybe more mattes, but I like this palette. I think it's nice. I will keep it around. Soft Glam. Man, this is a throwback. This is a throwback. I really love this palette. I love the color story. I think it's really nice. I will keep this one around as well. The Sultry palette, I really like as well. This is one that has been discontinued, and gosh, yeah, I have to keep it. I have to keep it. Then we have the Alyssa Edwards palette. This has survived so many declutters. I love Alyssa Edwards. Love Alyssa Edwards. She's my favorite drag queen from RuPaul's Drag Race. And this palette, I'll be honest with you, I don't really like the palette. I don't find that the mattes are easy to use at all whatsoever. And I really want to keep it just for the nostalgia aspect of it, because I don't really see myself using it, but it is like a piece of makeup history. The Carly Bible palette is another one, man. This is also a piece of makeup history, right? It is a beautiful color story, and I remember the quality being really good. I mean, I haven't used it in several years, so maybe it doesn't hold up, but I do want to keep it around. I do want to keep it around. And then I pulled out the Urban Decay Naked palette. I guess it was with the ABH palettes because it's shaped the same. And this one I got in PR this year. I was super excited. It was my first PR from Urban Decay, and I actually really like this palette. I never owned it previous to this, like I never had it in the past, like so many other people did, but I can see why it's a classic. It's a good palette. I mean, is it the most amazing shadow quality ever in the world? No, but it's a pretty, like, more cool toned leaning palette. Yeah, I like it. I'm gonna keep it around. Technically, this is not Anastasia Beverly Hills, but it's ABH Norvina number 5, right? Yes. Oh my goodness, you guys. I freaking love this palette. This used to be like my favorite palette for such a long time. I think the shadow quality is so good. It is so good. The mattes are like super buttery, super blendable. I think that these are better than the regular ABH mattes because they are, I don't know, they're a little silkier. They're not as powdery, and the shimmers are really pretty. There is a pressed glitter, which I don't love, but this is a really nice purple palette that's not all purple, so I'm definitely going to keep that one. This is the Ofra and Samantha March Life's a Draft palette. Oh my goodness. When I first got this, I used the crap out of it. I really like it. I mean, I don't love Ofra's eyeshadows. I think they are very, very, very lightly pigmented, very subtle, which, I mean, I can go for sometimes, but I mean, I really bought this because I'm a fan of Samantha, and I really like the cheek products as well, so I will keep this around as well. I only have 2 Pat McGrath palettes. So I have her Mothership Mega Celestial Odyssey Artistry palette. This was the holiday palette, I believe, from 2022 or 2023. I can't remember, but this is a very shimmer heavy palette. It only has 4 mattes, and right here, these are 4 mattes, the rest are shimmers. And this was my first experience from Pat McGrath, and I thought it was okay. Like, the shimmers are pretty. They're really good. Just very wet metallics. There's no like special shades in here. None of her, whatever her special shades are called. It's kind of slipping my mind, but I think this palette's pretty. Like, it's definitely for me more of a companion palette because I do feel a lot of these more colorful shimmers would do better with some more colorful mattes. But I think it's fine. I mean, I'm gonna keep it around. And then we have the Blitz Astral. That's the name of the special formula from her. This is the Blitz Astral Quad in Iconic Illumination. This is a nice palette. I think it's good. I got it on sale. I did not pay full price for it. I think full price, it's something crazy. I'm not even gonna say what it is because I don't remember, but I don't think it's worth full price. I think these shades are pretty, especially this one. It is more of like a topper kind of shade. It's really pretty. The rest look fine. Like they're just pretty shimmers. They don't shift or anything like that. The packaging on this is very luxurious. I will give it that. But personally for me, like I would never pay full price for something like this. But yeah, I mean, I want to keep it around because I bought it. And I do like them. It's not that I don't like them, but I just prefer more like indie brand shadows personally. You know what? I think I'm gonna let go of the Pat McGrath stuff. I don't review her on my channel at all, and like I just don't see myself reaching for these palettes at all. I really don't. And they both are discontinued as well. Nobody's asking for comparison swatches, and to be fair, I really do need to clear space out of my drawers because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 drawers for my eyeshadow palettes, and they're all completely full. And I know I'm going to accumulate more palettes, so I am actually going to declutter both of these palettes. I only have one Too Faced palette. It is the Italian Spritz palette. And I actually really like this palette. It came out in 2023. I think the quality is good. The mattes are really good, user-friendly, buildable mattes. The shimmers are nice. They're not my favorite shimmers, but I think they're good, especially for like a mainstream brand being sold at Ulta and Sephora. So I will keep this one around. I have both of the BadToTheBrow palettes. I know the glare is so bad because of my lights and everything, but I have the Major Dimensions 1 and 2. So this is 1. Oh my goodness, when I first bought this, I used the crap out of it. I think it's really, really nice. The mattes are super buttery. The shimmers are nice in this. I think he did improve his shimmer formula with the second palette. They are a little bit on the crumbly side. They're definitely more topper-like. There are 2 cream shadows in here, which I really like. So I will keep this palette. I'm also going to keep the BadToTheBrow Major Dimension 2 palette. Like I said, I do feel like the shimmer ooh, this is kind of crumbly. Oops. I do feel like the shimmer formula improved with the second palette, but again, absolutely gorgeous, buttery, blendable mattes. And it is more of like a rosy toned neutral palette. Same thing with 2 cream shades. I do really like those palettes a lot. All right, I have these Smashbox palettes. I got these sent to me in PR this year, and we have the Bougie Vibes, which is like a small purple palette. I'm gonna declutter this. I don't see myself reaching for this. There are only 3 mattes, and they're pretty mid-tone. Some of the shimmers are pretty, and some of the shimmers are not my favorite. They're more like satiny shimmers. And especially like a dark satin shimmer, I don't really love it. I think they're like, it's fine quality. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Just like color story wise, it's not my favorite how it's set up. I also don't love the packaging on these. I think they're pretty pricey and it's very cheap packaging. I do find that with a lot of Smashbox products, they need to up their packaging, especially like in 2024, 2025. This would have been okay in 2010, but like, you know, times have changed. I'm gonna keep this one, Earthy Vibes. I do like this color story a lot more, and this is something I would definitely travel with. I actually like the mattes. The shimmers are fine. They're not my favorite, but I would travel with this simply for the mattes because I love how this is set up. We have a super deep dark green. We have more of a like brown. We have a warm brown, so I could pair these together, a neutral brown and a bright lime green. So this one I will keep. I will declutter the purple one. The Huda Beauty Rose Quartz palette. This is the only Huda Beauty palette I have, and I love this palette. I think it is so gorgeous from the packaging to the color story to the formulas. I'm telling you, this palette is one of my favorite mainstream palettes. The quality of these shimmers is so good. I don't want to start, well, you know, I'm gonna swatch some of them because they're so beautiful. I mean, just gorgeous. Look at that. I mean, really beautiful shimmers. The mattes are nice as well, so I'm definitely gonna keep that one. This palette is new to me this year, and I've gotten so much use out of it. It's the Dreamy Dozen Volume 2 from Lawless. It is just like a pretty standard neutral palette. I love how compact this is. I love how this is set up, where it is light, mid-tone, and deep in the mattes, light, mid-tone, and deep in the shimmers. You have an inner corner shimmer option. We have an inner corner matte option. We have this black you could use as a liner or to deepen up your look. Some of the shimmers are more of that kind of standard metallic. They're not the shiniest, but some of them have a little more shine to them. Honestly, I'm really, really impressed with this palette. I did get this when I went to visit Aniela Kniekvist, and she has like a set of drawers where she has stuff that she's going to give away, and she asked me if I wanted to go through it, and I did pick out a couple of things, and this is one of the things I picked out. And honestly, phenomenal neutral palette that I've been traveling with and I've gotten so much use out of. When I went to Creators and Friends, one of the meals was sponsored by Sarat, which is a luxury beauty brand. And I really do not review luxury beauty brands on this channel. I just don't. It's just not my niche. But I will say I actually really love this palette. It is very luxury eyeshadow-esque. The mattes are very, very, very blendable. They're lightly pigmented, but in a way that they don't feel like dry or chalky. They still feel really silky, and the shimmers are very soft. This is for someone that just wants a very soft eye look. You don't want a very metallic look to your eyelids, but they don't feel dry and cheap. They just feel different. I don't know how else to explain it. I've tried to explain this so many times, and I've probably failed at it. But yeah, I'm definitely going to keep this. This is the Beyond Beige quad, and I got this one at Creators and Friends in PR. And then I only have one Viseart palette. This is a brand that so many people in my comment section talk about how much they love. This is the Petites Fours in Violetta. I really like this quad. I've traveled with this quad as well, and has a matte. It has a matte with shimmer particles that you can just basically dust off and use as a matte. A really pretty duochrome that is blue to purple. And then we have a like blackened gray shimmer. I really enjoy using this palette. I haven't used it in so long. I probably should pull it out and use it again. But a really nice little tiny quad, good for traveling, and you can get a really pretty purple look out of it. All right, next drawer is the ColourPop drawer, as well as some miscellaneous other brands as well. More like affordable brands. So let's go through ColourPop. I can get rid of some of these. I don't reach for them. And I did do like a ColourPop ranking video. I think I was keeping a lot of them around for that purpose, but I've already done that video. And for me to redo it, I really am not going to reuse these palettes to get my thoughts again. So I don't feel like there's a point in keeping them around, if that makes sense. Plush Like Me. I really like this palette a lot. I think it's really good quality. There are a few different packaging styles from ColourPop, and I do feel like the different packaging styles have different quality shadows, as well as the pan shapes. So like the packaging that is like raised details, this one has like velvet details with gold foiling. Limoncello is another one where it has like a raised detail type of feeling, almost like a soft matte touch, that are in the packaging where the cover is really skinny and this part is a little thicker and it's magnetized. The quality of these palettes is so good. It is so, so good. And the pans are a little bit larger than like this one coming up. They're a little bit larger. These shimmers in these are just really pretty, really smooth. The mattes are a little harder pressed in the pan, but still very, very pretty and very good. So yeah, I love the packaging on these. I'm going to keep the Limoncello because this is in my top 3 favorite ColourPop palettes ever, and I would be devastated to part with it. Plush Like Me, I also really like. I think I am going to keep those two. Those two for now. Okay, Welcome Foolish Mortals is a newer palette. I bought this last year, but I used it this year. I did basically just rank it in my most recent palette ranking. I love the Haunted Mansion. Love it so much, so I love the theming. The palettes with smaller pans, same thing with the Star Wars. I think the mattes are looser pressed. So they do pick up on the brush a little bit easier. I will say with this palette in particular, I do feel like the matte formula is almost too powdery. It blends away. And because these are like gray toned, I don't love how they look on my eyes. The shimmers in here vary. We do have like their hybrid glitter type of formula here. This one I also think is a hybrid glitter. There are more like shinier metallics. There are more standard metallics. So there is a mix of different formulas. I think the quality is good. It's not great, but I am going to keep this around because it is fairly new to me and I do enjoy it. Star Wars palette is another one of my favorite palettes from ColourPop. I think the quality of this is so good. I love the packaging. I love the color story. Same thing I said about this. These mattes are lighter pressed in the pan, but I feel like these are a little bit better in terms of blendability because they're not gray based. They work a little bit better for me. There are two marbled like super shock shadow type shades here, and the shimmers in this are really interesting. I think this color story is really interesting. I think the quality is really good, so I'm definitely gonna keep this one around. Now we're getting to these ones that are a little bit larger, that have that same like super thin top with a thicker bottom. I don't feel like these types of palettes though, like in the larger pans, I don't really love the quality of these. I think some of the shimmers are just pretty lackluster. They're not really shiny and they're a little thicker on the lid personally. I don't really like the shimmers in this, if I'm going to be honest with you. I also think that the mattes are very, very, very hard pressed in the pan. I do have a hard time picking them up. I don't feel like they show up true to pan. So this is from the Naruto collection. I did get this collection sent to me in PR, which I'm super grateful for, but like I don't see myself reaching for this. I don't have an attachment to the IP at all whatsoever. So I think I am going to declutter this one. So we have the 1111 palette. This was one of their neutral palettes that they came out with in 2023. I did receive this one in PR. There's just one of those like glitter hybrid shades. I actually don't mind that type of formula. It's not my favorite, but I don't mind it. I think this is a really pretty neutral palette. This is a palette I would reach for, so I am gonna keep that one. The Beauty and the Beast palette, love, one of my favorite ColourPop palettes. I think they did such an amazing job with the theming, with the packaging, as well as the color story with this one. And I really look at how cute that is. I love this color story. Neutrals, a couple of pops of yellow, a couple of pops of blue. There is one of these like, again, glitter hybrid shades. I don't mind them. I think they're fine. It does give like a really pretty kind of bluish duochrome effect to the lid, and all of these other shimmers are really stunning. And yeah, I really like this palette, definitely going to keep it. Then we have the Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon for Love and Justice palette. I did get this one sent in PR. This one is good, it's fine. It's pretty light to mid-tone. It doesn't have a ton of depth. I do really like the shimmers in this. I think they're very pretty, very ethereal. A couple of the glitter hybrid shades. I like this in the spring and summertime, and I do like this as a companion palette, so I am gonna keep that one as well. We have the Glow Getter palette. This was from, like they had released two palettes at the same time. I wanna say in 2022. I think this is fine. I don't love this palette. I don't hate it. I think it's just kind of take it or leave it. I think the mattes are pretty hard pressed in the pan. I think some of the shimmers, again, with these larger round pans, it really can vary in terms of like quality of shadows in my opinion. So I definitely can get rid of that one. I haven't even thought about it. Lush Life. Oh my goodness. I love this palette and it's been discontinued. It's one of their really good, like very good quality palettes in my opinion. The mattes are really good. I love how rich and deep these mattes are. The shimmers are very wet looking, very metallic, super gorgeous. So I will definitely keep this one around. Again, it's discontinued. Then we have the Alice in Wonderland palette. This palette is so adorable. Again, in terms of packaging, I think they absolutely nailed it. I will say the palettes that have square pans, I don't like the formulas of. I don't think that they're the greatest. Definitely the shimmers are not very shiny. We have a glitter hybrid shade, maybe two of them. And the mattes that are here are just way too light for my preference. I keep this around because I love the packaging. I think the packaging is some of my favorite packaging that ColourPop has ever done. But like, do I need to keep a palette around for the packaging? I really don't. I really don't. I can get rid of this. And plus, I'm keeping the blushes in this collection because I do actually use the blushes. And then we have some of their 9-pan palettes. So this is the Mandalorian. I really like this palette. I'll talk about both of these at the same time. The Child and the Mandalorian. Love the packaging on these. So well done. The Mandalorian is more of like a grungy neutral palette. Love this mustard. I think the quality is good with these. Like the palettes that have the small pans, I think are really good quality. And this is more of like a cool toned green with like a pop of olive and then this neutral column. So I will keep those. That's taupe. Oh, and I have this one. C-3PO, another Star Wars themed. This is very golden. I think well, actually, I don't even think this is available. If it is, I think that if you wanted the Natasha Denona Golden palette and you don't want to spend the money, this you could get very similar looks out of it. And I actually think this is very good quality. like really good quality. So I will keep that. And then that's Taupe. I absolutely love, one of my favorite ColourPop palettes ever. Just a gorgeous cool tone palette that's not all gray tones. And I love the shimmers in here. There is like a Super Shock shadow. I've had this for years and the Super Shock still like feels good. It still feels good. So keeping that. I have a handful of the ColourPop like Target. Well, some of them were at Target and some of them were just in like certain collections or whatever. The glare is so bad. I'm so sorry. So these were two that were at Target. We have Mauve and Up and Fresh Greens. I like these palettes. I think they're good. Again, the ColourPop palettes with the small round pans, I think are good quality. Like I have no complaints about these whatsoever. I think I will keep these. I think I'll keep these. I'm pretty sure I purchased those myself. And then these three I got in PR. These were from one of their collections. I can't even remember what the collection was, but yeah, I also really like these. I remember I traveled and I brought all three, like I was away for 2 weeks and I brought all three of these palettes and I used all three of them. Enjoyed the looks I got out of them. No complaints. I think I will keep these as well. Yeah, I like them. I can see myself reaching for them, and if they keep coming out with palettes in this packaging for Target, I want to be able to compare them. Something about me is I love the ColourPop quads. I love the ColourPop quads. I will say I used to own a lot more. I did declutter a bunch of them, and also I've had them break over the years because these are very, very fragile. But I think that's why they're so good, is like they're so pigmented. The mattes are so pigmented because they're so lightly pressed. The shimmers are so shiny, sparkly, and I think it's, again, because they're so lightly pressed. Like they just pick up so nice. Look at how beautiful that palette is. This is the Mocktail. Oh my goodness. Gorgeous. Then we have Citrus Fizz, which is a gorgeous, just neutral palette. I don't travel with these because they break so easily. And this one is one that came out just this year with one of their holiday sets. This is Sweetie, so I did get this one sent in PR. Really pretty neutrals. So I'm gonna keep these. They are some of my favorite quality from ColourPop. And then I have some larger palettes from ColourPop. So I have the Pokemon and ColourPop collab. Love Pokemon with all of my heart. When I saw that they were doing a collab with ColourPop, I was so excited, like so excited. And I got this collection sent in PR. I was over the moon. I will say I don't really love the quality of this palette. Again, it's the large circle pans where the mattes are pressed pretty hard in the pan, and some of the shimmers, they're just not special and they feel heavy. I just never going to reach for something like that. It feels thick without, I don't know if you can even tell. It just is not, it's not it. For me, it's not it. There's a couple of these glitter hybrid shades. Some of the like lighter shimmers are pretty, but like I'm keeping this around simply because it's Pokemon. And it's fairly new, so I do want to have it around for comparison's sake. But like I don't really like the quality of it personally. I love the ColourPop Mega Palettes. Love them. They're also another of my favorite quality palettes as well as color stories. So I have the Smoke and Hot palette. This came in very high in my countdown of ranking all my palettes I tried last year. Love the soft matte packaging. I don't know if you can tell, there's like flames embossed all over it. And it is just a palette full of warm tone neutrals, fiery tones. And again, we have the small circle pans, so the mattes are not pressed very hard in the pan. The shimmers are not pressed very hard in the pan, so they just pick up on the brush beautifully. They show up super vibrant. There are a couple of these glitter hybrid shades, but for the most part, it's mattes and shimmers. Love this palette, and I love a warm tone look. So for me, it's a win-win all around. The Bare Necessities I got sent in PR. I also really enjoy this palette. This is one of their older mega palettes, but I still think the quality is very good. It's a neutral palette. If you like more a mix of different neutrals versus just a straight up all warm tone palette, you would probably enjoy this. I think it's great. I've really enjoyed the looks I've gotten out of it. The Precious Metals is one that came out this year. Again, quality, phenomenal. The shimmers in this are so beautiful. A really good mix of warm, cool, and neutral. Yep, really gorgeous. The Aurora Struck palette, another one of my favorites. Love the packaging. One of my favorite packaging that ColourPop has ever done. And then we have more like blue, green, purple. So if you're more of a color lover or you just want like one colorful palette that you can just dip into for any purpose. This one is definitely more shimmer heavy. And I wish there were more purple mattes in this. That was kind of my complaint when I reviewed it, but still really pretty. And then we have the So Jaded. Oh my goodness, you guys, how old is this palette? It is so old. I keep it around for the memories. So this was a collaboration between Kathleen Lights and ColourPop. I still think this color story is so beautiful. And I remember when I first saw it, I was like, wow, this color story is so different and so fresh, you know? So yeah, I'm gonna keep it because I'm crazy. So I only decluttered 3 ColourPop palettes. 3 is better than none. I will take it. I have one more here that I haven't tested yet. I got it in PR and I haven't used it yet. This is the Stranger Things. Love Stranger Things. It's one of my favorite TV shows ever. Look at this packaging. Oh, they did such a good job. And this color story, I cannot wait to dip into this one. It is a grungy like dream. Oh, I cannot wait to dip into this one. So I'm obviously keeping this one as well. I have these 2 palettes from HipDot, you guys. I don't want to get rid of them just because they're so cute, like nostalgia-wise. Come on. We have HipDot and Corn and HipDot and Evanescence. Where is HipDot? Are they ever coming back? Probably not, I'm guessing. I actually love this color story. I don't like that there are 2 pressed glitters. I don't like this duochrome, but these shades, phenomenal. Like the mattes are so good. I really didn't hear too many people talking about these palettes, and I've not really heard many people like review HipDot in the past, but I actually really liked the mattes a lot. And this is the Evanescence. It's definitely more blue leaning. I don't like that there's a pressed glitter. I don't love this duochrome, but these shades, stunning. Like this white shimmer, so pretty. So pretty. I actually really love the looks I got out of that palette, and I'm not a blue girl. I have one palette from Pacifica. I think I can let this one go. It is a gorgeous palette though, I will say that. I think the quality is good for a drugstore brand, and I think the shimmers are really pretty. The mattes are definitely very neutral. Like there's only 2 colorful mattes. The rest are very, very neutral, but I think they're pretty. Like there are some more shiny shimmers, but I'm not gonna reach for this. I did get this one sent in PR, but I'm just gonna pass it on. I only have 2 palettes from e.l.f. and they are both collaboration palettes. I don't wanna get rid of them. The Chipotle palette, do you guys remember when this came out? Oh my goodness, I was freaking out. I bought it on launch day. It sold out so fast and they never restocked it. It was a shame because this is the best quality palette e.l.f. has ever done. And I love the color story. I know it's meant to be like the Chipotle counter, which is kind of disgusting if you think about it too much, but I love this color story. Tell me if you have this palette. Please tell me if you still have this palette. Then we have the e.l.f. and American Eagle collaboration. This is the Denim Days eyeshadow palette. Love the packaging. It feels like denim. The actual like slip cover feels like the tags at American Eagle. If you know, you know. Then we have one of these like jean tags. Oh my goodness, so funny. And then we have this like mostly blue with a row of neutrals as well. I think the quality of this is good. It's not like the best quality ever, but I think it's good. Like I like it and I keep it around because it's limited edition and I just love the collaboration. I think it was done so well. I have one palette from Makeup Revolution. This is the Revolution Emily in Paris palette. It's just a tiny little neutral palette with a few, well, I mean, I was gonna say, listen, I've only been filming for 50 minutes and I'm exhausted already. I think this is fine. I think some of the shimmers are meh. I think the mattes are fine. It's not awful, but it's definitely not even close to something that's close to an indie palette or whatever. So I can definitely get rid of this. I did get this one sent in PR. I have one palette from Ace Beauty. Where have they been? That's another indie brand that like, they've fallen off the face of the earth. I feel like they haven't released anything this year. But this was one of the palettes they released at the end of last year. And I actually love this palette. I think the quality is really good. The mattes are very good, very pigmented. The shimmers are pretty. This one up here, Entrance, is not my favorite shimmer. It is more of like, again, heavier, not super shiny. But yeah, I'll keep this one around for a little longer. I kind of always forget that I have it, but it is a beautiful palette. Oh my goodness, Flower Beauty Desert Lights, you guys. Holy moly. I believe I decluttered this and rebought it because I missed it so much. I need to get some use out of this. These shimmers are so pretty. Flower Beauty is a drugstore brand, and this is an all shimmer palette that Like, these are so pretty. If I'm going to be honest with you, I like these more than the Pat McGrath Shimmer palette that I just decluttered. Like, I don't know. That's just my opinion, especially with the price point. I'm not saying that they're similar, because they're not. But for neutral shimmers, like, I'd way rather spend way less money and get these. So, yeah, I will keep that around. I completely forgot that I had that. Persona is another, the Identity palette. This was an OG palette back in the day. Remember when this was all the rage? It is a beautiful palette. Again, another palette that I really need to like take out and use. I could see myself traveling with this one. Really good palette. Another brand that I have actually had way more palettes from and I've decluttered over the years is BYO Cosmetics. I love their formula. They are obviously, they're owned by Makeup Revolution now, and they've not released any eyeshadows this year. I wonder if they're ever going to come out with eyeshadows ever again, because the eyeshadow formula from BYO Cosmetics, before they were purchased by Revolution, the quality is so good. But I can get rid of some of these. I'm not reaching for them. Like, I can get rid of some of these. Like, the Desert Oasis. I've had this for so many years. It is so beautiful. Like, it is so incredibly beautiful. It has, like, a section of, I think these are meant to be highlighters. And then we have this section of eyeshadows. It's very, very shimmer heavy. There's only 4 mattes that are all, or 5 mattes that are all, like, browns. I can get rid of this one. Man, I've had this for so many years, but I'm not reaching for it, and nobody's asking for comparisons. I do want to keep the Naughty palette. This is my favorite or one of my favorite BYO Cosmetics palettes. It was their holiday release, I believe, for 2022 or 2021. I mean, I can't remember. Gosh, it was so long ago. The quality of this palette is so, it's like an indie brand that you would pay, you know, $70 for. I mean, there's no like special shimmers, so maybe not 70, but you get what I'm saying. This palette is so good. There are a couple of pressed glitters, which isn't my favorite, but the mattes are so blendable, so buttery, so easy to work with. The shimmers are stunning. So I will keep this one. Then I have three of the Birthstone palettes. I do like to travel with these as companion palettes. We have Pearl for June. All of them have a pressed glitter in it, which is not my favorite, but this is a gorgeous neutral palette, man. So pretty. Citrine is my favorite because it is like super warm yellows and browns. The quality is so good with these. Diamond, I like using this one because it has like it's a matte black with sparkle, but you can basically just use as a matte. There is a matte white. There is a shimmery white silver. I'm tempted to keep these. I'm going to keep them for now. Then we have Amore in Amalfi, which is a gorgeous neutral palette. But I'll be honest with you, I don't need this. I really don't need this. I have so many palettes that look just like this, and I'm not reaching for this one. So I can get rid of that. Paris, Party in Paris, Passion in Paris. I've only used this a couple of times. I am tempted to keep this one. I think I'll keep this one because it is more of a unique color story. Party in Puerto Rico, I actually don't think this is the best beach quality. I think it's good, but it's not the best. So this one I can also declutter. These two, oh my gosh, this one is also one of my top 2 favorites. Like this warm toned, compact color story. The shimmers are super shiny. The mattes are super blendable. Definitely gonna keep that one. Low Key Love You, I can get rid of. I do also like the quality of this one, but this color story is not as unique to me. It's not something that I really need to keep around. So I can declutter that one. So I'm decluttering 3 BYO Cosmetics. Oh, 4, because I put the Desert Oasis over there, and I'm going to keep these ones. I know it seems like I haven't decluttered a whole lot, but already from that little declutter, I've opened up so much space. So now we're going to get to the indie brands. So not that you can see, but next to me, I have 3 brands on my left. I mean, I have 3 drawers on my left that are separated by brand. So the first drawer that I'm going to go through here is Unearthly Cosmetics and Odin's Eye. I don't see myself getting rid of hardly any of these. I'll be completely honest with you. They're 2 of my favorite brands. And generally speaking, like their quality is so good. So I don't really see myself getting rid of many of these, if any at all. So this is more of just like a collection, show of collection. So let's start with Odin's Eye. Man, I have so many palettes from them. It's kind of crazy. I didn't realize how many. Okay. So actually, I can declutter this palette. This one is the one I will declutter. The Verdandi palette. This is one of their mini eyeshadow palettes. I got it in a mystery box that I bought from them a while ago, and it's one of their old palettes, like pretty old palettes. I think their quality has improved immensely since this. I don't hate this palette. I don't think it's awful, but like these shimmers are very squishy, pretty thick, and I just don't love this color story, so I can get rid of this palette for sure. All right, we have these 3 palettes from one of the, man, I forget the collection, exactly what the name of the collection was, but they collaborated with 3 influencers, Betty Jean, Makeup Just for Fun, Amanda, and Lauren May Beauty. And I love these palettes. I purchased these ones myself. It's kind of cool because Betty Jean is one of my friends now, so of course I want to keep it. I mean, I'm keeping them all. I already said that, but I love the artwork on this depicting each of the influencers in their element. Planet Spirit. This was my favorite of the 3. I was really surprised considering how much I love neutrals. I loved the looks I got out of this palette. I think it's laid out so well where you can just really stick to the columns to create more monochromatic looks. Just really, really gorgeous. Flora Story is definitely more like greens and purples, which are some of my favorite colors to work with. A really gorgeous array of more muted, colorful tones. Love the multi-chrome that's here. And then we have the Sea Talk palette, which is more of a mix of neutrals and blues. Yeah, really gorgeous. Pretty shimmer heavy. I love this chartreuse kind of satin shade. Very, very different. So yes, gorgeous. Want to keep those, of course. We have their biggest palette they've ever done. This is the Eternal Twilight palette that came out this year. I definitely think they could have maybe made this a little more condensed or maybe made 2 palettes out of it, but we have a very distinct warm tone side, a very distinct cool tone side. I like the color story. I especially like the warm tone side. There are different shimmer formulas in here. They are doing these more like marbled shades that are definitely more on the chunkier side, but they're very beautiful, like very impactful on the lid. They also have this like more toppery shade, Guard, something different for them. So yeah, this one I got in PR. Oh, Norns. I can get rid of Norns too, because I don't really love this palette, if I'm going to be honest with you. Again, this is an old palette. They have re-released this palette in newer formula, but this is the old formula, and I don't love this palette, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think the shimmers are pretty. Some of the mattes are just kind of meh, and I don't reach for this. I don't see myself reaching for this, so I can get rid of Norns, and I actually can also get rid of Alva. This is another one of their really old palettes as well. I actually love the color story on this one. It is a neutral palette, mostly pinky mauves, and then we have this column of like yellowy bronzes. Stunning color story, but it is their old formula, which is not my favorite, so I can actually declutter those 2 as well. We have another set of collaboration palettes. This was the Legendary Diversa collection. This was from round 1, and these were from round 2. So this is one of my favorite Oden's Eye palettes, the Red Dragon palette, in collaboration with Judy, and it is a fiery, warm tone neutral palette with a couple of pops of green. I remember when I tried this palette, I was blown away. I think, was this my first Oden's Eye palette? It's very possible. And I was obsessed. Like, I was hooked. Ever since I tried this palette, I was like, yep, need it in my life. And then we have the round 2 that they did. And this is Judy's, Annette's, and Tina's palettes. This one came out, was it this year or last year? Gosh, I have no idea. What is time? So Judy's palette is a pastel palette. Love the cover art. I mean, Oden's Eye cover art, they always do an amazing job. Very much a pastel palette with a pop of like a darker brown. Not my favorite color story, but I do enjoy using this as a companion palette. We also have the Mighty Monster palette from Annette, from Annette's Makeup Corner. This is a gorgeous palette, a little more jewel toned. Really enjoyed the looks I got out of that. Then we have the Earthwood palette in collaboration with Tina from the Fancy Face. And this is my favorite one of the 3. I loved this palette, got so much use out of this palette, was always reaching for it. Actually, this did come out this year, didn't this? I feel like it did. I want to say that it did, yeah. Stunning. Stunning, stunning. I got all 3 of those sent to me in PR, and I bought the Red Dragon palette myself. Then we have Soul Mana 2. This came out last year in the summertime. kind of their version-ish of a rainbow palette, but a lot of blues. A lot of blues and purples. Great quality. There are no like special shades, no multichromes or duochromes, just really pretty shiny shimmers, really stunning mattes. Love this bottom row down here, but I really did enjoy the blue and purple looks I got out of this as well. That one I bought myself. Oh, and then we have Soul Manna 2 Moon Wish, which came out this year. I got this one in PR. This is definitely more blue purple, even more, kind of more the nighttime version. This shadow came broken, unfortunately, but really pretty if you like more mid-tone to deep shades. Then we have the, I forget what the name of this collection was. Oh, George Divine. Stone and Rock, Jewels and Gem. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Both palettes, beyond beautiful. Stone and Rock is the one I prefer because it is green. Oh my goodness. One of my favorite green palettes in my collection. One of my favorite green palettes in my collection. And then Jewels and Gem is more like cool tones. Come on, that is so beautiful. Oden's Eye knows how to do a good color story. They really, really nail color stories so well. So well. So definitely going to keep those. I did receive this collection in PR. It was the first PR I ever got from Oden's Eye. I was beyond excited. And then my friend Jelka Nyquist has collaborated with Oden's Eye a couple of times. So let's go through her palettes. So the original Hella palette I purchased myself. Another gorgeous green palette, but it has more than greens as well. Look at artwork, 20 out of 10. We've got 2 rows of greens, a row of pinks, and a row of like deep dark shades with also a multi-chrome as well, double-sided. Yeah, I've loved the looks I've gotten out of that palette. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Purchased that one myself, I think I already said that. Then we have Trick or Treat and Little Ghost. This was Halloween time last year that they came out with these. So Little Ghost is kind of like the bright poppy candy Halloween color story. So fun. Bright and poppy without being like a standard rainbow palette. So love that. And then my personal favorite of all 3 of the palettes that she's done is the Trick or Treat palette. This one is just so in my preference. These like warm tones, these bright pops of green, some more like burgundy shades. We have this dark, dark, dark brown, this like yellow. Oh, super fun, super vibrant, but still can be neutral. And then I have all of the Christmas palettes or holiday palettes they've ever done. So let's start with the original 2, which, man, these 2 are so beautiful. They really did something with this. Like they set something off when they came out with these palettes. It was out of nowhere and just stunning. This for a long time was my favorite Oden's Eye palette. The Christmas Eve palette. I mean, come on. This is one of the most beautiful color stories I've ever seen, period, from any brand. Just beautiful. And I'm not a huge blue person, but there's so much more to this than blues, but you can get a stunning blue look out of it. I purchased the first set myself. The rest I got in PR. So this is the Merry Christmas palette. Also, love this palette. Love this palette. This is more standard green red, but also with some interest. Man, I need to take these out and use them again. It's been a long time. And then from last year, we have Snow Dream and Hey Reindeer. So Hey Reindeer is more, again, it's more like colorful pastels. We do have a dark brown to ground it out if you want to deepen up the look. That's a fun one. And Snow Dream is more like classic Hallmark, neutral leaning color story with some pops of green and red. I actually really like this palette as well. This one is my favorite of the 2 that came out last year. I believe these are still available, these ones from last year. And then the ones from this year, oh my goodness, Silvery Bliss is gonna come up so high on my ranking because I love this palette. I think this color story is so gorgeous. Oh. Not just for holiday too, like I'll keep wearing this. I will keep wearing this throughout the year. Love the looks I've gotten out of this. A little more cool tone leaning, but we do have some pops of red, so stunningly beautiful. Got these ones in PR. I think I already said that. I'm not going to repeat myself. Rosy Jingle next. Definitely more like candy, Santa's Workshop, the toys that the elves are making. Listen, I'm already starting to go loopy, you guys. Stay with me. But I like this a lot. I would use this more as a companion palette personally, but I've really enjoyed this palette a lot. I did do a look combining these two palettes. I really enjoyed how they worked together. Unearthly Cosmetics is next. I have an insane amount of eyeshadow palettes from them. So we can start off with these, and I can declutter these. I don't love these palettes. They are my least favorite palettes from the brand. These are the quads that came out in their Halloween mystery box in 2023 or 2022. You guys, I don't remember. It was their first Halloween mystery box they ever did. This, I had a really hard time working with the red mattes. I just think they've improved their quality since this. The purple and the green are pretty, like I would use them. I mean, I do like them, but I'm not gonna reach for them. I'm just not gonna reach for them. They're fine, but I definitely enjoy their newer palettes more. All right, we have the Spaced Out palette. This is one of their smaller palettes from one of their summer mystery boxes. I do enjoy this palette. I think this is their really good quality, their newer quality, where the shimmers are really emollient and all of that. I did do a recently ranking all my Unearthly palettes in my collection, and I can link that down below if you want to like get even more information about all these palettes. You can check that video out, but I'm gonna keep the rest of the Unearthly palettes. This is in the dark. Maybe I can get rid of in the dark. I can get rid of in the dark. I'm not gonna reach for this. It's been discontinued as far as I know. I don't love the shimmers, and this is the old shimmer formula. So I can get rid of in the dark. Original Full Magic. Holy moly, one of my favorite palettes in my collection. So beautiful. It's been discontinued. I would be heartbroken if I had to part from it, so I'm going to keep it. The shimmers are so beautiful. The mattes are, I love it. I'm keeping it. Okay, the Daily Grind was not in my ranking because I'll be honest with you, I've never used this palette. I owned it previously with the old formula. Amanda gave me this one, which is a new formula, but I've yet to use it. So I'm definitely gonna try to get some use out of it because I love oranges and I love greens. So like this is right up my alley. So I am going to keep that one around. Night Terror, this was in this year's Halloween mystery box. This is a monochromatic purple palette. I love the 3 shimmer options. We have a duochrome, we have a standard shimmer, and we have this like iridescent shade. Love the mixture of mattes that go from light to deep. Great quality, like the new Unearthly quality, so I will keep that. Lore, one of my original, actually my very first purchase from the brand, but this is the remastered version that Amanda did give to me. So this one I did get in PR, but it is just a gorgeous, vampy, different color story. I don't know, I love the looks I've gotten out of this, and it has a special place in my heart because it was my first palette I ever got from the brand. Dead of Night, more blue purple, a couple pops of green, phenomenal new quality, super emollient shimmers, perfect for like Halloween time. This was a collaboration between Heather Austin and Unearthly. This is the Resurgence palette, super fun. A lot of pops of color, a little more grungy tones, a very different color story that I can't really say I already have in my collection, which is something that's hard to say with most palettes. Very pretty, very, very pretty. So of course gonna keep that, and I do adore Heather. So I will of course keep that. Leather and Lace, one of my favorite Unearthly palettes. If you are a neutral lover, I think you would really enjoy this. A row of greens, a row of warm tone neutrals, a row of purples. I mean, what else could someone ask for, really? Really. Love it. Not Normal, this is the old Not Normal. They have since remastered it, which it is on my wish list to pick up one day because I love this palette. It's one of my favorite color stories Unearthly has ever done, but I would love to have it in the new quality, and I do believe some of the shades in the new one are different shades than they're in the old one. So let me know if you picked up the new Not Normal. I would love to know your experience. Gargoyle I did get in PR. This was their Halloween release for this year. Super fun. Oh my gosh. The new Unearthly palettes that have come out this like second half of this year, I'm just drooling over them. Like the shimmers are so freaking beautiful. I don't know what kind of sorcery is going into these things. Yep, stunning. Spring Magic also came out in the springtime this year. Same thing. Look at these shimmers. Like even on camera, they just look so incredible. So incredible. Then I have the Strawberry Milkshake palette. This is an old palette, man. I got this years ago. It has like the big pans that come out. That's how old this is. The shimmer formula has definitely improved since this. Like the shimmers are fine, but they're not nothing too crazy, but I do like the color story. This is the Sleepover palette. Again, older quality, but still love it. Still want to keep it. Love the shade Laughter. Super pretty. And then Fairy Frolic. Love this palette. One of my favorite palettes. Even though it is the old quality, it's still really good. And the color story is super fall, like more muted pops. Ugh. Then I have a bunch of their rectangle palettes, so let's quickly go through those. Devour. Yep. Gorgeous. If you're looking for more mid-tone to deep mattes with some like iridescent duochrome multichrome shades. Can't deny how beautiful that is. Don't Be Jelly. Oh my gosh, I remember when I got this. I believe this one I got in PR. Devour, I believe I purchased myself. I could be wrong. But with Unearthly, you can kind of assume it's about 50-50% purchased in PR. Look at this. Oh, I remember when I first got this and I swatched the shimmers, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Are you kidding me? Surrender was a Valentine's Day collection that they came out with a couple years ago. Definitely think the quality's improved since then. But I love this color story. It's very neutral with some pops of red and pink. Love that. Get Groovy was one of their summer mystery boxes, their large summer mystery box. Love having this as like a condensed rainbow palette. This is the really good new quality from them. Love dipping into this if I need a certain shade. Fall Magic Remastered, one of my favorites. 50-50 split matte to shimmer ratio, and these shimmers, they're all special shimmers, I do believe, unless, I think maybe one of them is a standard shimmer. But, I mean, really beautiful. This is the High Temp. You know this is coming in very high in my countdown. Fall Magic I got in PR, High Temp I got in PR. I can't even express to you how beautiful these mattes are. They are so pigmented, but also so easy to work with. And I like that this is so matte heavy. It made the cost of the palette come down significantly. And for me, 4 shimmers in a palette is perfect. Love it. Sorcerer Smoke I got in PR. This came out at the very end of last year. If you like neutrals and you want a mix of neutrals, greens, cool tones, warm tones, one of their more neutral leaning palettes, but with the phenomenal new quality. What else is there to say, you guys? I kind of keep repeating myself, but Charmer is great, again, if you want more mid-tone to deep mattes. That is kind of my one thing about this palette. I wish it was a lighter matte because that's just how I do my makeup. But look, I mean, you can just see in the pan, these shimmers are just spectacular. And the Dreamer palette, another neutral leaning palette that's a little more cool toned. Cool tone neutrals and then some pinks and mauves. I love this rectangle packaging and rectangle, like the quality in the rectangle packaging from Unearthly. It's great. Oh, and then I do have their newest palette, which is in a different drawer. That's why I didn't see it. Just a Taste palette. This was their holiday release for this year. Yeah, I don't really have any other words to say besides this is coming up very high in my ranking for the year. One of my favorite palettes they've ever done, by far. And one of my favorite palettes that has come out this year. I think the color story is so gorgeous, even just to look at. It's just the perfect mix of neutrals, colors. We have purples, we have greens, we have reds. I mean, this is a palette that, like, if I didn't own however many palettes we're going to find out by the end of this video, I would definitely want this one in my palette, in my collection if I had like a really small collection. And I love me some vampires. Next up, we have Fantasy Cosmetica, another one of my favorite indie brands. Man, their shimmer formula is some of my favorite shimmers ever, ever, ever. The Fighter palette is my favorite palette from the brand because it is the most neutral leaning. Oh my goodness, but it's not a boring neutral palette. There are just like interesting mix of more gray toned, blue, even blue leaning. We have this red, we have this more warm tone leaning. Yeah, their 9-pound palettes is what they've mostly done, and they've done them so well. I purchased that one. Warlock, I believe I got in PR. Another 9-pan palette that has a couple of pops of color. Very interesting. They do great, interesting color stories in general. The Rogue palette, I believe I purchased myself. It is more blue-purple. Very Ice Princess. I did put this in like my winter palettes for 2023, and I can definitely see wintertime in it. Another blue palette. This is the Viseart palette. I got this one in PR. It was this year. Mostly blue with these two very unexpected pops of like a creamy yellow. Great color combination that you wouldn't really think of. Cradle the Nice is another blue, I believe like blue, half mauves. Super fun. Love that. Enchanted Autumn. This was in collaboration with Makeup Just for Fun, Amanda. If you like muted pops of color, more mid-tone mattes, you would probably enjoy this. I've really enjoyed the looks I've gotten out of this. Super fun. And then Harvest of Souls is their latest palette and their largest palette. Wow. I mean, quality is so amazing in this, you guys. And I love how this is laid out in quads. In my mind, like very clearly can create cohesive looks sticking to those quads. It's super easy. The shimmers in this are so shiny, so vibrant. If you're like a sparkly, shimmery fiend, you would really enjoy this brand. So I'm gonna keep all of these. I have 5 palettes from Bella Beaute Bar. So the first palette I ever bought from them, I think I can declutter. I definitely think that they have improved their quality since this palette has been released. This is the Star-Crossed Lovers palette. I believe this was their Valentine's Day release for 2023 or 2022. Gosh, I can't remember. It's been so long. But I think the shimmers in this are pretty. The mattes have definitely improved since this palette is released. And the mattes from Bella Beaute Bar, like the new mattes, are some of my favorite mattes I've ever tried ever in any brand. So I can let go of this one for sure. The Secret Garden is the largest palette I have from them. It is a gorgeous, like greens. We have a row of neutrals. We have a lot of pinks. I do like this palette a lot. I love the mattes in this. Love, love, love the mattes in this. Some of the shimmers from Bella Beaute Bar are a little chunkier and a little bit flakier than I personally enjoy. But I do really like this palette, so of course I'm going to keep it. Dead Roses. Love this color story. Love this color story. Very, very vampy. It's purple, it's pink, it's got those deeper shades over here. Love the looks I got out of these. The Ultraviolet palette in collaboration with Deandra Nicole. She is an Instagram creator. She does amazing swatches, amazing comparisons, great content. Go follow her on Instagram. And she created this gorgeous monochromatic purple palette. It is my favorite monochromatic purple palette in my palette. Guys, I'm losing it. In my collection. Oh my goodness. So definitely gonna keep that around. Recently De-Influence, also love the cover art, love the theming, love this color story. Especially love this warm tone side, but also really enjoyed the looks I created out of this side as well. Very fun. So I will be keeping these for sure. All right, next up we have Blend Bunny. I own every single palette that they've ever released, apart from their like multi-chrome quad. I am gonna keep all the palettes because this is a brand that like I do want to own everything that they've released so that I can have it for my collection. I'm a huge fan of Blend Bunny. They are one of my favorite brands ever, 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 ever. Like their matte formula is my favorite matte formula ever. It's just the best. So let's start with Surge. This was one of the first palettes they've released. I definitely think that the shimmer quality has improved. These are my least favorite shimmers in any of their palettes that they have. I don't love them, but I do like having some neon tones. That's a very unique row that I don't have in a lot of palettes. We have pastels, we have, you know, their usual gradient, but kind of in a different way. So love that. This came out this year. This is in collaboration with Donnie Darkowitz. This is the Little Miss She Never Misses. I did get this one in PR. If you like more mid-tone to deep shades, both in your mattes and your metallics, you would really enjoy this. Yeah, it is rainbow leaning, but really pretty. Really, really pretty. Love the shimmers in this. Sugar in Grunge. Oh my goodness, one of my favorite palettes from the brand. This was like an ode to her like emo days, which I'm totally here for. I was also an emo kid. But I like when she does the gradient. The shimmers are not in the same column as their gradient, but I don't mind that at all. Like the shimmers, I can clearly pick out what I want, but I like when the mattes are in a gradient. This one came out this year. This is in collaboration with Lynn's Makeup Looks on Instagram. This is the smallest palette they've ever done, and I'm really hoping that they're going to do more small palettes because I thought this was great. I thought this was a great layout, very matte heavy, which I appreciate. The two shimmers that are in here are so freaking stunning. There is like an iridescent shade, and then there's a topper shade. This is a magnetic palette as well. It's the first time they're doing a magnetic palette. All Done Up is their like one of their neutral palettes, one of their small-ish palettes, but still we have quite a few shades. We have the gradient of light to deep with a corresponding shimmer, and if you are a neutral lover, I think you would really enjoy this. And it's not just a boring neutral palette. There are other tones in here. There's like greens, there's more like burgundy pinks, there's more mustard leaning, there's that standard gray, black, white, and then there are some neutral browns. The shimmers in this are very intense, very intense. This is another one that came out this year, Divination in collaboration with Robert Welsh. The shimmers in this are so gorgeous. I love that you are able to create a neutral look with this, although it does look like a rainbow-esque palette. There's definitely more than just a rainbow look that you can get out of this. So love that. Got that in PR. This is my very first palette I ever got from the brand. I won it in a giveaway from Nilly from BadToTheBrow, and it started my love for Blend Money. It is a entirely matte rainbow palette. I reach into this all the time. I am a professional dancer, and whenever I go to competitions, this goes with me every single time. And I do pair it with other things because I do like to have shimmers in my looks, but this is coming with me every time because it's effortless. At 5 in the morning when I need to get up and blend my eyeshadow, I'm not thinking about it and I'm not awake, and my makeup still looks great every time thanks to Blend Bunny mattes. The Machina palette I got in PR from last year. This was a kind of like a sci-fi robot themed palette that Maggie, the owner of Blend Bunny, created with her father, who has since passed away. So this has a special place in her heart. I love this color story, one of my favorite color stories that they've ever done, and it's just very interesting. Like this side to me reflects all of the flowers and the butterfly, that pretty part, and then this side is kind of industrial. Love it. The Longing palette came out this year, another more neutral leaning palette that's more cool toned, but again, not boring. There are some colors infused in here. The shimmers in here are so beautiful. I love this olive green row, really beautiful. The Lure palette is definitely good for those who love purple, green, blue, because you're getting a lot of that in here. This is the first time they put a multi-chrome in the palette. Pearl is such a beautiful shade. Such a beautiful shade. Primal has since been discontinued, but it is like a shade extension of the Blends palette, where it's filling in some of the gaps that the Blends palette doesn't have. We also have more mid-tone to deep shimmers, and we have a large white and a large black pan. Not one of my favorites from the brand, but definitely a useful one if you want more rainbow colors in your collection. The Dollhouse is another neutral leaning palette, but it's got tons of different options. I remember trying this palette and really enjoying the shimmers. I do think their shimmers have even improved since this palette, but they were definitely a step up from the Surge palette, which was the other palette I had tried previous to this. So this is the Forget Me Not palette. This is the eye and face palette, and this is meant to be, well, like I've already said, an eye and face palette. The pans in this are larger because you can use these as face highlights, you can use these as face powders. I don't personally use them that way. I've not found a combination for my face for like a contour or a bronzer. I don't contour my face anyway, but I have used these in my brows. I have used these on the face as highlighters. I think these are stunning on the face as highlighters. This is one I think one day I will declutter because this is my least favorite palette from the brand, but I do want to have it just because I want a full Blend Bunny collection. Sickly Sweet, one of my favorite palettes from the brand. This was a Halloween release for last year, and it is like a candy, like Skittles grab bag, just like a mesh of different tones, but it seems chaotic, but it is actually very cohesive to create looks. I love that there are some pops of darker mattes in here because I can use this as a standalone palette for my preferences. A lot of pastel palettes that don't have deeper or mid-tone shades, I use them more as companion palettes, so love that. And then we have the Lawless palette that came out this year in collaboration with Ellis Atlantis. This palette is absolutely ginormous, and I actually stepped on it and I broke the mirror. So hopefully I'm not getting 7 years of bad luck from that. But this is a very, very large rainbow palette. Very large. So if you are a makeup artist that does a lot of creative looks, you might enjoy this. I really like the shimmers in this. A lot of them are iridescent duochromes. Very different for the brand, but this is a all-in-one palette if you're looking for something like that. I did get this one sent in PR, and I did get the Sickly Sweet one sent in PR, and the Forget Me Not. Last brand for this drawer is Gourmand Girls. So the Halloween release from Gourmand Girls was the Calavera palette. I really, really enjoy this color story. This is their most rainbow-esque palette. It's the largest palette that they've done. These mattes are very pigmented, and the shimmers are really pretty. There are more like special shimmers in here. They have a little more chunk to them than I personally like, but I think a lot of people would enjoy them. So I got this one. I actually got all of these sent in PR. All of the Gourmand Girl ones are sent in PR. Their newest release is the Frozen Kiss palette. This is their holiday release for this year. Man, this is a beautiful palette. Really beautiful palette. Again, we have more of these marbled shades here. We have a holographic shade, which is very holographic. And then we have two more standard shimmers. If you like blues and purples, those wintry tones, I think you would enjoy this one. Then we have all of these like rectangle palettes that they've done in collaboration with Doodles by the Bunny as well as an influencer collab. So we have the Nightshade palette. Love this one. I love all of these rectangle Halloween themed palettes. I think they're also unique and beautiful. It's hard for me to choose a favorite, to be honest with you. The Haunted, a little more grungy, even more warm toned pops in there. The Spooked was the original one. Love this one. Did I buy this one? I can't remember if I bought this one or got this one sent in PR. I can't remember. Nueva Vida was in collaboration with Steph from Steph's Beauty Stash. And this is a fun summertime palette. Like this is giving Miami in the summertime. You know what I mean? Just super fun and bright. This one's more of a companion palette for me, but really enjoy it. Silent Night was their holiday release for last year. Oh. It looks like it's a blue palette, but it's really not. There's only 4 blues, and the rest are neutrals and some like pops of gold. That is yummy. We also have the Gourmandises palette. This came out this year. This is their pastel palette, but I do like I said, with the Blend Bunny pastel palette, there are other tones in here, so you can deepen it up. You can like have a mid-tone shade in there as well. This is the Warriors Wear Pink palette. This was Christina's tribute to one of her friends who's suffering from breast cancer. I love this palette for Valentine's Day. I love how matte heavy. I like how they do their larger palettes more matte heavy. I just prefer a matte heavy palette. My favorite palette from the brand is the Peach Perfect palette. This palette is so freaking gorgeous. I cannot get over it. The pans are a lot larger, so I thought that's interesting, but if you love greens and warm tones, you would really enjoy this one. Love this palette. And the shimmers in this are a little smoother, which is more my preference. All right, the next drawer that I have is Nomad and Glamlite. So let's start with Nomad. All right, so this is another brand that I do want to keep all of the palettes because I do. Well, actually, I can get rid of this one. This is the Santa's Village palette. I did purchase this one myself. This is my least favorite palette from the brand. They have improved their formulas so much since this palette has come out. And this was their holiday release. It was limited edition. And Nomad is a destination-based indie brand. So they base all of their collections on different destinations around the world. And this was for Lapland, Finland. And I don't really love the shimmer formula here. It's definitely very toppery. It's not very opaque. And the mattes in this aren't super cohesive in my opinion. So I am going to declutter this one. My favorite palette to this day, and the first palette I ever received, well, I purchased this one, is the Haunted Europe palette. I love a spooky theme. I love the lenticular cover, and I love this color story. It is muted neutrals. We have some pops of color as well, but I do think that their formula has improved since this palette came out. But it holds a special place in my heart because it was my first purchase from the brand. I just remember receiving this and being like, oh my goodness, how cool is this? Look how much time and thought has gone into this palette, but I also just love the color story as well. Then the next palette I bought from them was the Whistler Snow Lodge palette. This is a fun palette. This is a really fun palette. I really enjoy this one. It is definitely blue heavy, but we do have some neutrals and some pops of green. I think that their quality had stepped up from Haunted Europe, but I still think their quality has improved since. Especially like these two like iridescent duochromes, I think they're okay, but their newer palettes are better, but I do enjoy this wintry theme. The next palette that I purchased from them was the Bosque Nuboso de Monteverde palette, their Cloud Forest palette. This is, and I don't know if this is still available, I'm pretty sure it is. This is the palette when people ask me, I'm a color lover, what palette should I buy from Nomad? And I always say this one because I think the quality of this is so good. So good. Both the mattes and the shimmers, the quality is so good. It is a rainbow-esque palette, but it is very heavily green. If you stop and look at the shades, there's a lot of greens in here. But there are some more bright pops as well. Now, I'm not like a huge bright color lover all the time, but I still love this palette because I think the quality is so good. I also purchased the Fête de Provence palette, another one of my favorite color stories. It's so unique, so spring. Just the combination of colors. I remember seeing this color story on Instagram when it was just first sneak peeked, and I was just blown away. I just thought this was such a beautiful color story. I think the shimmer formula has improved since this palette came out a couple years ago, but I still really enjoy it. All the rest of the palettes that I have from Nomad, I did receive in PR from here going forward, just so you know. So this is the Verona Amore e Morte palette. This was one of their Valentine's Day releases. We have Love and Death. So a pink, red monochromatic side, and then a cool tone neutral side on the other side. Really pretty, really fun, really cool concept where you can just use one side to create a look, or you can combine the two sides. They're always trying to do something different with their packaging and their theming, which I appreciate. So this is really fun. I like it. I'm going to keep it. We have the Royal Europe palette. This packaging is so fun. It's hard to see, but it's just like layers upon layers upon layers upon layers stacked on top of each other to create these like cutout effects. And this is a jewel toned Lover's Dream. Very pretty if you like mid-tone to deep mattes. The mattes are gorgeous, gorgeous. These shimmers, all of them are multichromes, and we have another palette from them that came out this year that has all multichromes, and I do like the multichrome formula from Nomad. I think it's different than a lot of brands. It's a little more on the dry side, which I think could be a good thing if you suffer from creasing or if you have hooded lids. You know, a lot of multichromes can be very emollient, and these are a little more powdery. So, and in my opinion, they're a little more subtle as well. So it's a different look, but I think a good look depending on what you're looking for. Then we have the Hudson Valley palette. This is one of my favorite palettes from the brand. I love this palette. It is fall encapsulated in a palette. I love how matte heavy this is. All three shimmers are so beautiful. Kind of that standard metallic that has a shine to them. We have a very clear like foliage warm tone side, and then this is like the drab rainy days of fall where the leaves have fallen off the trees and we're heading into winter. That's the story that I tell myself. But I love this palette, and I love the texture. It feels almost like a paper bag, like when you go apple picking. This is the Keys Beachy and Peachy. I can't believe this came out this year. It feels like it came out so long ago. This year has felt so freaking long. But this is the Florida Keys, and again, a very summer palette. It's very bright and poppy and colorful and fun. A lot of blues. If you like blues, you would really enjoy this. I think the quality is very good. It's a little more light to mid-tone. There is one deep purple, but it's mostly light to mid-tone in the mattes. A really nice one. We have the Okavango Delta Safari palette. This came in, I want to say, my top 10 of last year. I really enjoy this palette. Love the like faux suede leopard cover, and then on the inside we have warm tone neutrals, greens, cool tone neutrals. I mean, really. And then some of these shimmers are printed kind of like the outside, like a zebra and like a tiger stripe. I think that's super fun. And we have spots as well. Yeah, these shimmers are pretty. They're definitely more of a standard shimmer. They're not overly sparkly or anything like that, but a really pretty neutral palette. Then we have New Zealand Stargazing. This came out at the beginning of this year, and this is a beautiful palette. I really, really enjoy this one. It is, oh man, very night sky inspired. I totally get it. It matches the packaging so well. We have a couple of multi-chromes in here. We have a couple of standard shimmers. We have a couple of iridescent shades. The mattes have a little bit more depth as well. We have some neutral mattes. This one is absolutely gorgeous. Another one that came out this year. Nomad released a lot of palettes this year. This is the Fuji 5 Lakes palette. I actually kept the postcard. Oh my God, one of my favorite packagings they've ever done. It's textured. It is so beautiful. It is so beautiful. What a fun fall color story. We have the sky, we have the water, we have the sun, we have the leaves. I mean, really beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. This shade, Diamond Fuji, it is an iridescent shade. Stun. Stun, stun. Another palette that came out this year is their holiday release, which is the Polar Express. I love when they do cutouts with their packaging because you can see the cutout of the train. Really fun. And this is the quintessential wintertime palette, in my opinion. A lot of blues and whites, a lot of neutrals as well. I've really enjoyed playing with the neutral side of this palette a lot. I've got some great neutral looks out of it, but I also did enjoy the blue looks I got out of this as well. I love that there's a matte white. I love that there's a shimmery white. You've got two different options for the inner corner. I always love having a chromy silver shimmer. We have 3 different depths of brown, which is always great for me. So love this. Great quality, the good Nomad quality as well. Ghost Town USA. Super fun. Another great spooky palette. This one is definitely more heavily cool toned. Love the lenticular packaging. The quality of this is so good. The shimmers are very, very good. Sparkly, shiny. If that is your thing, you would really enjoy this. But we still have a handful of mattes, and I love how they laid them out in a gradient. So it's very easy to put looks together, just sticking to those little groups. So beautiful. Another one of their larger palettes is the Ireland Wild Atlantic Way, which also came out this year. This is another palette with that really good shimmer formula. We have a velvet touch outside, and the shimmers in this are just like the Ghost Town USA, where they're very impactful, sparkly, shiny. Oof, really good. And it is very heavily green, but I've gotten neutral looks out of this. I've done a blue look out of this. So it isn't just like a truly monochromatic green palette. You are able to get other looks, which I appreciate with a palette this big. I want to be able to get, you know, at least 2 different types of looks, and you definitely can do that with this one. Then we have the Chicago Speakeasy. This is one of my favorite palettes they came out with this year. I love this color story so very, very much. This also has a velvet touch outside, and all of these are multi-chromes. I love this color story, purples, greens, neutrals. We have different depths that are just easy to put looks together, and I've already explained my feelings with the multi-chromes. I feel that they're the same multi-chrome type of formula that I already described, so that's a really nice one, especially if you like neutrals like me, but you want some muted pops of color. And then we have these mini palettes from the brand. I know a lot of people said they weren't crazy about the formulas in these, but actually I thought the formulas were good. So the original one they came out with is the Nomad Air the Travel palette, and it is very neutral. I really like this palette for traveling. Really like this palette for traveling. Just good old-fashioned neutrals. This one is from the Canadian Rockies. Kind of green-blue. Really enjoyed the looks I got out of that. Oslo is more cool tone neutrals. Really nice. And then this one is my favorite of the new set, Abu Dhabi, because it is more warm tone. Yes, I'm keeping all my Nomad palettes. What can I say? All right, I actually took a break. I took a nap. I had some lunch. And now I'm back. Let's continue on. We've got Glamlite up next. Let's start with my oldest Glamlite palette, and I think I am actually going to declutter this one. This is the Dirty Martini palette. When this came out, it was just everything and more. Oh my goodness. And I do really like this palette, but I don't reach for it ever, and I can let it go. I can let it go. It is a great palette. I love the theming and the packaging, and the shimmers in this are really pretty, but I can let it go. Another one that I can let go is the Kiss palette, Rock and Roll All Night and Party Every Day palette in collaboration with Kiss. I thought this was a fun collaboration, and I thought the idea was cool, and I think the packaging is nice, but I don't love these shadows. I found the mattes incredibly hard to work with, and I think the shimmers are just meh, and they're all really deep. I actually did a look with this palette, and I had to take it off and redo it, and that's not very often that happens to me, so I think I am going to let this one go. I am going to keep all the rest of my Glamlite palettes. This is another brand that I really enjoy. I really enjoy them. This is my newest palette from them in my collection. This is the Trick or Treat Give Me Something Good to Eat palette. And of course we have the signature lenticular cover. This is in collaboration with the movie Trick or Treat, which I don't like that movie. So the IP does nothing for me, but this color story, oh my goodness. And I was especially happy because it is a smaller palette. It's all warm tone neutrals. I did create one look with this and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. So I'm continuing to test this. I do want to put it in my yearly ranking. So I want to do 2 more looks with it so that I can really get a good idea. But the shimmers in this are so good. Like when Glamlite shimmers are that smooth, sparkly formula, they're some of the best out there. So yeah, love this palette. Super excited to have it. Another really good palette from them is the Rick and Morty palette. And this is a very colorful, large palette. Once again, the IP does nothing for me. I've never seen the show Rick and Morty, but this palette, like quality-wise, phenomenal. Color story is super fun. It is like a rainbow palette that is more neon-based, but they do have some deeper tones in there as well. And the shimmers in this are stunning. Absolutely stunning palette. One of my favorites from the brand. The Scooby-Doo palette, this is like the large Scooby-Doo palette. They have like 2 smaller Scooby-Doo palettes, which I don't own. But I think the quality of these shadows is very, very good. Once again, like the good Glamlite quality, great shiny, sparkly shimmers. The mattes are really good. It is a little bit more mid-tone to deep in the mattes, which Glamlite can tend to be. But I do like this palette. I don't love how big it is and heavy it is, like, and with the sharp corners, it is like a weapon. But I do like the shadows inside, so I will keep that. We have the Ghostface Lives palette. This is the original one. I know they remastered and came out with a new one this year, which I love the new one. I actually prefer the new one to this one, but I decided not to pick it up. I just stuck with this one. And this is a nice monochromatic, cool tone palette if you like gray leaning shades. I do like how it's set up where there are like different gradients of light, medium, and deep. There are some blue undertones here. The shimmers in this are stunning. And I love Scream. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. We have the Fresh Prince 10 color palette, and this is a more condensed neon palette. I actually like this palette. It's not my favorite color story ever, but I think the quality is good. The mattes are not easy to build on top of each other. I think because they're just so pigmented, they are a little bit better if you go deep to light versus light to deep, and the shimmers are really pretty. All of these I purchased myself. I don't get Glamlite PR, just so you know. We have the Chucky Crazy in Love palette. This came out last year. One of my favorites from the brand. Really stunning. Cool toned color story that's a little bit more smoky and vampy. We have purples, we have gray toned neutrals as well, and some reds. I really loved my look. Every time I use this palette, I was always just like so blown away with the looks. It's not like my favorite undertone because I do prefer warm tones, but I do like this when I want a cool toned look. This is, I know I've said this about so many of the palettes, this is definitely one of my favorite Glamlite palettes. I love the packaging. It is so cartoony, it's so vivid, like the artwork, the raised details, the glossy details, so well done. Like very comic, which is of course the idea. And the color story, this is right up my alley. More of a warm tone color story. There is a pop of blue, there is a pop of like this purple duochrome. And the quality of the shimmers is so good. The good sparkly shimmer formula from Glamlite that I love. And I love that this is more of a condensed, smaller palette. The Strawberry Shortcake Berrylicious palette, I also love. I'm not crazy about a palette full of pinks and reds because I do feel like, especially in the mattes, they're hard to like layer 2 or 3 of them because they kind of all tend to look the same. Like you're not getting that gradient look that you can with a lot of other tones. So I appreciate the color story. I think it is pretty, but my favorite part of this color story are the greens. Like I created a look with the greens and I loved it. These shimmers are the good shimmers from Glamlite. Super sparkly, super shiny, super impactful. So yeah, love that. Betty Boop, another collaboration that came out this year. Really stunning quality, the good quality that I've talked about. And I like this pink red color story a little bit more just because the difference in the kind of like tones of the reds and the pinks, they're not all like bright pinks and reds like in the Strawberry Shortcake. We have more of like a purple undertone. We have more that's like a dark, dark, dark red. We have more of like a brownish red. We have more of a mauve-y, pinkish. So I appreciate this a little bit more. I mean, again, I don't feel like the variety of looks are that great with this, but I have to admit the shimmer formula in this is so good. And then the last palette I have from them is the Halloween 2 Welcome to Haddonfield palette. This is another brand new palette of theirs to my collection, and it is like half blue, half neutrals. I'm trying to do this in a way that you can not see me in the mirror, but the light is still shining on the palette. I hope that's okay. I know this is kind of tricky, but yeah, there we go. That's a little bit better. Yeah, I've created several looks from this palette now, and I really enjoy it. It's the good Glamlite quality, sparkly shimmers, great mattes. I love that they have this variety of really nice neutral mattes. We have this orange, which I always love having an orange, but of course you can make this go blue. There's a beautiful iridescent shade. This duochrome is so beautiful. Yeah, a stunning palette. Oh, I forgot to include another Natasha Denona palette that I just found in my testing drawer. This is the Rosha palette. This is the holiday release from Natasha Denona, and it is kind of like a mostly purple monochromatic palette with a few pops of pink. That's kind of how I see it, or like a few pops of like berry pink, I should say, because there are some like lighter pinks up here. I've enjoyed this palette so far. I think it's good. It's not like blowing my mind or anything, but I do think, you know, like I've already said about her newer Medi palettes, the quality of the shimmers is just continuing to elevate. There are some stunning shimmers in here, especially for the mainstream market, and the mattes are the good Natasha Denona mattes as well. All right, now I'm going into my miscellaneous indie drawer, and this drawer is freaking huge, so we still have a long ways to go, as you can clearly see by the length of this video. So let's talk about Sigma. Sigma is one of my favorite brands. I think they make amazing products, and I really, really enjoy their eyeshadow formula. It is just a good staple, solid formula, and I think they're continuing to elevate their formula as well. This is the Little Mermaid palette. I did get this one sent in PR. The shimmers in this are so beautiful. Like, what a gorgeous color story. I think it reflects the movie so well. The whole like seaside idea where we have those oceany tones and then the sandy tones. You can clearly create a neutral look. You can create a colorful look. And the shimmers are just so interesting. So interesting. I find this one so fun. I do want to create one more look with this before I put it in my ranking, but it will be in my ranking for the end of the year for sure. I have 2 quads from Sigma, and I really, really like these. They're just neutral quads, and these are ones that I'd more likely be able to travel with than, say, the ColourPop ones, because these are not as fragile, that is for sure. So this is Peach Pie, which is a little more warm leaning. The Sigma matte formula is a good standard matte formula. I feel like it's right in the middle with pigmentation, and their shimmers are really nice. More standard metallics, I think a little on the drier side, but I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a way it's like they're not gonna crease on you. They're not like too much on the lid. They don't overtake the whole look like some shimmers do. This is Bon Bon. Yep, really beautiful. We have the Beauty and the Beast palette. The packaging on this, ooh, so gorgeous. And then the color story is mostly neutral, but we have some pops of color on the corner here. We have a deep dark navy blue. I think this was done so well. Very, very beautiful palette. Cool neutrals I got in PR. Love the packaging. They do have a very luxurious packaging style. Like they clearly do put a lot of thought and effort into it. And even though it's called Cool Neutrals, I don't consider this entire thing cool. I think there are some warm tones in here as well, which I prefer to have a mix if I am going to have a cool tone palette, quote, cool tone palette. And then the last palette I have from them is the Nomad Mini. This came in very high in my ranking for 2023. I just enjoy this. Like, it's a nice, slim mini palette that you can travel with. It's laid out so well with 4 mattes that are in a gradient and 3 gorgeous shimmers. One of them's a duochrome, 2 standard shimmers. Very easy to create a cohesive look, like a nice mauve-y look if that's what you're looking for. All right, I have these 3 palettes from What's Up Beauty. All 3 of these I received in PR from the brand. I really like the What's Up Beauty eyeshadow formula. I feel like their mattes are very silky, very easy to work with, not overly pigmented, and their shimmers are really smooth and really sparkly. So let's start off with the Geodes palette. And typically all of their palettes kind of follow the same pattern where they have mostly neutral mattes and pops of color with the shimmers. And then we have the Desert Monsoon palette. Again, more neutral mattes with some pops of color in the shimmers. And then we have the Dragon Eye palette, and this one came out, did this come out this year or last year? Really beautiful. Really, really beautiful. If you're someone who likes very sparkly shimmers, but you want just basically neutral mattes, I think this would be a nice brand for you to try out. I am going to keep all of those. I am going to declutter the Melt Electrip palette. I was not really impressed with this. This is the first and only palette I've ever tried from the brand, and from what I understand, this was an anomaly. Like, this isn't their usual quality. In terms of mattes, I've heard that they have phenomenal mattes, and I thought this was just okay. Like, I didn't dislike it, but I don't really see myself reaching for this again, and I don't really typically review Melt that often that I can let that go. I'm fine with that. Next up, we have Cleona, and I love Cleona. I tried them for the first time this year. When I went to Creators and Friends, I did a workshop with them, or we all did a workshop with them making nail polishes, and we had an opportunity to try out their single shadows, which are just so beautiful. And they did release eyeshadow palettes this year for the first time ever, or the first time in a long time. I think they had released palettes long ago, but anyway, I bought Paleo myself, and they sent me Archeo in PR. So I've actually not used Archeo. I've used a couple of the mattes, but I've not created like too many looks with this on its own. So I don't think this is gonna make it into my ranking for the end of the year. But I have created several looks with Paleo, and oh my goodness. I mean, I've already said the Cleona shimmer formula it's to die for. Like, it is just so beyond beautiful, and I love that we were getting these gorgeous Cleona shimmers in a palette. The mattes are good. They're not my favorite mattes. They are quite powdery. I have a hard time getting them to stick to my eyes sometimes, but overall, like, the looks I've gotten out of this at the end of the day, I really, really enjoy. So super happy to have this in my collection, and I'm excited to play with Archeo at some point. I like that they both contain neutrals, which is fun for me because I'll get more use out of it if a palette has neutrals. Next up, we have Game Beauty. I have 3 palettes from the brand, 2 from their Elemental collection and 1 from their Persona 5 Royale collection. I was sent these 2 in PR, and I purchased this one myself. So Persona 5, I don't have any attachment to the IP, and I think this palette is good. I actually prefer the Elemental palettes in terms of quality, but it's good. Like, I like this color story. It's fun. There's a lot you can do with it. I like that it's matte heavy, but the mattes were okay, and the shimmers were just okay for me. These palettes I like more. The matte formula from Game Beauty is definitely more on the silky side, pressed pretty hard in the pan, but they're easier to control the pigment, and the shimmers are really pretty. Again, pretty hard pressed in the pan, but super shiny, super, like, just really smooth. So this one is Pyro, and then this one is Geo. I love this one. This is like an everyday palette for me. It's got such great neutral shades for me, and like leaning more warm. I love that there's a satin cream shade. There's a matte white creamy shade. You can deepen it up. Macaroni and cheesy yellow. Gotta love that, so I am gonna keep all 3 of those. I have 2 palettes from Shroud Cosmetics, which I'm not sure what's going on with them, if they're ever coming back or what, you know, after what happened to them at the end of last year. But I do keep these two around because they are in collaboration with one of my friends, and I really love these palettes as well. They're both in collaboration with Betty Jean or Batty Bean. This is the It's Freakin' Bats palette. Look at this gorgeous 9-pan. Shroud's formula is really good. Like both the mattes and the metallics are really good. The metallics are very, very, very smooth. Super shiny. And this is Halloween. I actually prefer this one of the two, but both are stunning. Both are stunning. So of course I'm going to keep those. I stuck my fingernail into an orange shadow, so we love that. So let's talk about DD Signature. All of these palettes, yes, all of these palettes I've received in PR from the brand. So the first one I have is the Taste of Guava Quad. They have made a really large improvement from beginning to end. They were a brand that shut down for a while. They reopened, I believe, last year and have released palettes, and their quality is just getting better and better and better. So I do feel like the quality of the mattes has gotten better since this palette launched. Then we have the Jingle Bell Ruby palette, which was their holiday release for last year. Again, I feel that they've improved the quality of their mattes. I do think that they re-released this year with their new matte quality, but I've not experienced it, so you have to let me know if you got it, what you feel about it. But the shimmers are so beautiful. So incredibly beautiful. So love that. They sent me the Classic Autumn eyeshadow palette. I have yet to use it. And I do believe this is with the new matte formula because it was just sent to me recently. This looks beautiful. It looks like a really cute autumn color story. I'm super excited to dip into this. Let me know if you have this and what you think about it. Again, I don't think this is going to make my ranking for this year because I'm just not going to have enough time to try it, but I will put it in a future ranking. The Blooming Basket palette came out spring or summer of this year. I think they're improving their packaging as well. I'm not crazy about this packaging, but I really love this palette. I surprisingly got a lot of really beautiful looks out of this. I didn't think I was going to based on like this color story. It seemed kind of jumbled to me, but I actually love this palette. These shimmers are stunning. The shimmers are stunning. The Ultimate Cappuccino palette I think is my favorite palette from the brand. I love this packaging. It's my favorite packaging they've done. It's kind of like got an iridescence to it, and the color story, oh gosh, it's so good. The mattes are really nice. The shimmers are really nice. It's mostly neutrals. We've got some pops of color. Yeah, I love this palette. For sure, my favorite palette that I've tried from the brand, but a close second would be the Fearless Holiday palette. Stepping up the packaging. This is their largest palette they've done, and it is magnetic. I almost dug my fingernail into another shadow. I would have screamed. Oh my goodness. Yeah, guys, this palette is so beautiful. I know so many of you picked it up on launch day. I hope you're loving it because it's something. Like, I can't wait to create more looks with this. I think I've only created one look with this. So I need to try to use this a couple more times before the end of the year because I do love it. I actually think I am going to declutter the Taste of Guava Quad. I don't see myself reaching for this. Like I said, I feel that their quality has improved, and if I can get rid of some things, I'm going to. So I'm going to get rid of the Taste of Guava Quad, but I'm going to keep everything else. I actually found another palette from DD Signature. It's the Sweet Aesthetics palette. This is an all matte palette, and I am going to keep this one around. I don't love this palette though, I'll be honest with you. Like the tones, I mean, it's a companion palette. I think the quality's fine. It's okay. It's fine. I'm going to keep it around because it's so brand new, and I will get use out of it. All right, the next brand I want to talk about is Adept. I only have 3 palettes from Adept. 2 of them are collaborations. One is with the Amy Loves, and this is a gorgeous palette. If you love sparkly shimmers that are the moment, Adept is the brand for you. Their shimmers are just like Cleona, like they're the star of the show. And I think the mattes from Adept are fine. Like they're nothing too crazy in my opinion. The thing I do like about them is because they are so like buildable and more controllable, you are able to use, or at least I was able to use some of these as transition shades if I went in with a fluffier brush and just kind of lightly put them through my crease. So I was able to sheer them out, which I appreciate. But yeah, Amy did a great job with this one. Definitely going to keep it. The Heather Austin palette was the first palette I ever purchased from the brand. I am a big fan of Heather, and these shimmers are just so beautiful. I remember using them and just being absolutely blown away by these shimmers. They're just so like super emollient, shiny, sparkly, shifty. I should pull this one out and use it again. I haven't used it in such a long time. And then the Immunit New, this I believe has been discontinued. This is my least favorite of the 3 palettes I have from them. It's still a good palette, but the mattes are just okay. Like they're just pretty lightly pigmented. Shimmers are stunning though. Like you can't deny it. Also really like this faux leather packaging from Adept. It feels very luxurious. All right, I have 2 palettes from Glaminatrix Cosmetics. This is a brand that I'm definitely interested in continuing to try out their products coming into the new year. I'm really impressed with the quality of these palettes, and I really like what they have coming out, like those mini palettes that they showed. And they also just showed like blush duos, which I'm very interested in. They also have the faux leather packaging that Adept has, which I find, it's like my favorite type of packaging. It just feels so luxurious. So this is the Rich Romantic palette. I did purchase both of these myself. This is a stunning pinky mauve-y, like Valentine's Day palette, but you are able to get more like true brown neutral looks out of this. You can make it go more berry. There's a peach, really beautiful. The one thing I do find with a lot of palettes from brands that have so many multichromes in it is a lot of these shift green. And I wish they didn't, because they don't really go with all of the mattes necessarily all of the time. That's my only complaint. But other than that, it's really pretty. I am gonna keep both of these palettes. This is the Barely Basic palette. Really beautiful. It reminds me a lot of the Leather and Lace palette. Like if you covered this and covered this, it would be the Leather and Lace palette from Unearthly Cosmetics with the gradient and the corresponding shimmer. Again, these all these are iridescent duochromes. I don't need 4 iridescent duochromes personally, but I do like the addition of this more cool tone brown column here. Great quality. They said they're improving, like their new palettes have improved matte formula. I think the matte formula from this brand is already good, so I'm definitely looking forward to seeing like, what does that mean? What do they mean by improved matte formula? All right, I think it's time to let go of these 2 Dominique Cosmetics palettes. I've had these for years. 4 years. I used to own, I think, every palette that she released, and I've slowly over the years decluttered them. I think for the time, they were good. But I just feel like brands, like indie brands now, this does not stand up in quality, in my opinion. Like it's good. There's nothing wrong with it per se, but there are so many other palettes in my collection I would be reaching for, and nobody's asking for comparisons to Dominique Cosmetics anymore. They've kind of fallen off. Certainly they don't do eyeshadow palettes anymore. They haven't released eyeshadow palettes in a really long time. This is a beautiful palette. This is one of my favorites from the brand, the Berries and Cream, but I can let it go. I don't need it. Somebody else could really enjoy it. Same thing with the Latte palette. This was such a cool neutral palette with a couple of pops of color. The shimmers are just okay. They're pretty lackluster. The mattes are good, but like, once again, this is not a unique color story. In fact, the Cappuccino palette from DD Signature gives me these vibes, but better. So I can let this go. A brand I tried for the first time this year was Beauty Bay. And I really have had a really good experience with this brand. Very affordable price point. I love the Reckless Romance palette. One of my favorite palettes I tried this year. I think it's so nice. It's a cool toned palette that has gray leaning shades, but there are also berries, pinks, purples. I think the quality of this is very good. The mattes are good. They're like a great pigment level, easy to work with. The shimmers are really pretty. Standard shimmers that give that really pretty shine to the eyes. I've really enjoyed this. Like when I was testing this, I was reaching for it over and over and over again. So definitely gonna keep that, and I'm gonna keep the Botanical. I like this one slightly less. I feel like some of the mattes in this, like the lighter mattes, aren't really that pigmented. This green did not show up on me, and I am of a light skin tone, so that's kind of disappointing. The shimmers, though, are that really pretty, shiny, standard shimmer. Really enjoy the shimmers. Some of these lighter mattes just weren't really the most pigmented, but I still want to keep the palette. The next brand that we can talk about is Wicked Widow Beauty. I did receive all of these palettes in PR from the brand. Let's talk about their mini palettes. I actually love these little palettes. Some of my favorite palettes from the brand. I just think they're so condensed, and the packaging is cute. Really cute color stories. This one is my favorite one, the Graveyard Smash. I love me a spooky themed palette, and this one is super fun. More grungy tones, but you still can create like a pretty neutral look out of this. These shimmers from Wicked Widow Beauty are so good. Like so shimmery, so shiny, so impactful, so wet looking. Their mattes are good too. This is the, it doesn't have the name on it. Twisted Tea Party, or is that Inslee Rain? Could be. Yeah, the shimmers in this are so good. So beautiful. This one's fun for spring. Lovesick was their Valentine's Day this year? I guess so. Super fun. Then we have the Crow palette. Oh my gosh, people were losing their minds over this. I had never seen the Crow. I actually watched the Crow after this collection came out. That's what kind of opened me up to it. And this is the inside. Super fun. Deep, dark color story. The shimmers are very, very shiny, wet, sparkly. If you like this color story and you like a very, very shiny, shimmery shimmer, you would like this. Really stunning. And then we have the Scissor Hands 2 palette. This is the first palette I ever got from the brand. I love Edward Scissorhands. Again, shimmers, very impressed with. Mattes are good too. I love these kind of more grungy greens, but it is mostly a blue palette. Love it. I'm not getting rid of any of those. A brand that is fairly new to me is Lethal Cosmetics. Actually, that's not completely true. I did buy Teresa's second collaboration palette with them. I believe, when did this come out? 2023. And I enjoyed this palette. I think the packaging is so fun with the alien, like the UFO beaming down on the desert. Very cool. This is the Teresa is Lethal. And the color story is really fun. It's very spring to me. This shimmer, TV Dinner, super chromy. This shimmer, Space Trash, so fun. It's like a blue with a pink reflect. Really cool. And I liked this palette. I love Teresa, so I wanted to support Teresa. But also, I really like the shimmers. And I thought the mattes were good, more buildable. But I will say, since this palette, like the other palettes I have from them, their quality just continues to improve. For sure. So I'm not getting rid of any of these Lethal palettes, by the way. The next palette that I got was the, man, they don't have the name on this. I forget already what palette it's called. But this is, and I said this, I believe this will be in my ranking this year because I think I tried it at the very, very, very end of last year, and I think it will carry into this year. This is one of my favorite color stories I've ever seen. If I were going to create a palette, I would draw from this for inspiration. I think this is one of the most beautiful color stories I've ever seen. It's just grungy, it's neutral, it's colorful. But I will say these aren't my favorite formulas. Like the shimmers are a little crumbly. The mattes are good. They're not perfect, but I really, really like this color story. So I don't even care that it's not perfect in terms of formula. But when they came out with these palettes this year, the Avatar: The Last Airbender collaboration, I got these in PR. The quality of these palettes is some of the best quality I've tried. The mattes are super pigmented, not like powdery. The shimmers, some of them are a little chunky, but there are also some smoother ones as well. But all of them are so gorgeous on the lid. None of them are duds. None of them are dusty. I mean, really, really beautiful. Oh my gosh. Yeah, these palettes are so fun. Again, if I had a bare bones collection, I would want to keep these because they all work really well together. This one is my least favorite, actually, surprisingly. I think the other ones have more richer tones. My favorite one is this one, the Fire. Oh my gosh. So beautiful. So incredibly beautiful. Highly recommend these. And then I also got sent in PR their newest palette. This is the Spellcraft. Some of my favorite packaging I've ever seen. This comes off, and we have this faux leather spell book. Oh my gosh. How beautiful. And it's magnetic, which I appreciate. And this is a beautiful palette. When I first saw the sneak peek on Instagram, I thought it was going to be a monochromatic purple palette. It's not. you can definitely get some other looks out of this as well. I'm still continuing to test this one, so hold off on my thoughts on exactly formulas, but I will put this in my ranking for like the end of the year as well. All right, next up we have Cosmic Brushes or Cosmic Beauty, one of my favorite eyeshadow formulas of all time. I own several of their palettes. I'm not getting rid of any of them. Spoiler alert. I actually did own their colorful like pastel palette. I did end up decluttering that one because one of the shades came broken and it destroyed my life. Like it got everywhere. It got all over my carpet in my apartment. It got all over my clothes. It got all over, like I'm still finding purple eyeshadow in places that I didn't know that it was there. So I had to throw the palette out. Like I tried to clean out the actual pan. It was awful. So I did, oh, Delicious Delights. That's what it was called. So these are the ones I have left. This is the Gothic palette. This is their smallest palette. And this is a monochromatic purple palette. I think it's done right though. Like there are different undertones in here. We have cool tones. We have more like warm berry tones. I always love that they put an iridescent duochrome in all of their palettes and a multichrome. So yeah, this one's a fun one to play with. Definitely more compact. Love the packaging. We have the Undergrowth palette. Came out this year. This is like a green and warm tone neutral palette. Oh my gosh. I like this one more than the Natasha Denona Yucca palette. Gives the same vibes, but I actually like this one more personally. We have the Cool Trolls palette. This also came with a broken shadow, unfortunately. I can deal with a broken shimmer more than a broken matte though, because a broken shimmer will somewhat stay and I can still use it if I want to, like put my finger in there. The Serenity palette was the first palette I ever tried from them. This is what like popped them off, like got them really popular in the space. An absolutely gorgeous palette, no doubt about it. The Muse. This is like a grungy neutrals with a twist palette in my opinion. I'd have to say my favorite palette from, well, this one and the Undergrowth are my two favorites. This is the Neutrals. Oh my gosh. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful palette. And the last palette I want to show from them is from the Sinister Mystery Box. If you do not want to see the inside of this palette, skip to this timestamp. But otherwise, I'm about to open it up and we'll take a look together. I've purchased every single palette myself from Cosmic Brushes. I'm not on their PR list, just so you know. Oh, there's a quarter. How long was that quarter sitting there? I'll be honest with you, I'm not crazy about the fact that there's this. Like, I'm never going to use that shade. But I've only used this palette once in the video that I did, like the dedicated video I did with this palette or with this collection. So I have to continue using this. I'm hoping to include it in my yearly ranking. If not, it will carry over to next year. Another one of my favorite eyeshadow formulas is Lunar Beauty. And I do have 4 of their eyeshadow palettes. So the first one we can talk about is the Siren Sunset. This is their most like interesting, colorful color story that I have. It's more cool tone leaning, a little more vampy. Love this palette. I love Lunar Beauty's formula. The mattes are super easy to work with. That more like, I don't know, in between pigment level, and their shimmers are just really pretty. Mostly standard shimmers. They do sometimes pop in 1 or 2 special shades in their palettes. This Water Nymph shade is a iridescent shade. And I think, yeah, this one, Siren, is a duochrome or a multichrome. Maybe it's a multichrome. I can't really tell. But yeah, they really do a good job of just putting in like pretty much standard shimmers, which is just my preference. Strawberry Dream was the first palette I ever bought from them. This is an OG palette. Man, I haven't used this in so long. This is very bright and colorful. Very, very bright and colorful. At the time when I bought this, I wasn't really experimenting with color that much. I'll have to try to pull this one out again. Full Fantasy was my #1 palette from 2023 in my yearly ranking. This is just beautiful. It actually reminds me a lot of the Cosmic Brushes Nude Trolls palette. But again, just a beautiful neutral palette. We have a kind of duochrome here. We actually have 2 duochromes. And beautiful, 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 beautiful. The Moonshroom palette is a palette that came out with this year. This is going to be up there in my ranking for sure. One of my favorite palettes that came out this year. I love the theming, the packaging, the actual like color story. Gorgeous. Of course, gonna keep all 4. So let's talk about Aurora Lights. Beautiful cover. Beautiful purple, pink, blue, green color story. Something about Simply Posh that I really enjoy is how they set up their palettes, where it is a gradient style. You can stick to the columns to create like cohesive monochromatic looks. All of their shimmers are duochromes. Beautiful, smooth, sparkly shimmers. Mattes are really good to work with. Just like perfectly blendable, pigmented. This is an underrated brand in my opinion. I can't wait to see what their next launch is. We have Coastal. This came out this year. This is like a mermaid palette if I ever saw one. Like it's reminding me of the beach so much. So beautiful if you love neutrals. Berry Icy was the first palette I ever tried from them and I fell in love. I fell in love. Gorgeous. Half blue, half berry. Citrus Punch, one of my favorite color stories that they've done. This was their original one and they have re-released this with their like new and improved formula because I do feel like they're pretty hard pressed in the pan, all of the shades in here. So I still love the palette though. I love the color story. Cozy Cabin was their holiday release last year and they are going to re-release this. One of my shades broke while I was talking about it recently in a video. It got everywhere, but because it's a shimmer, I can deal with it. It's easier to clean up. I bought Berry Icy myself and I'm pretty sure I received all the other ones in PR. And I'm gonna keep all of these palettes. I forgot to, for DD Signature, include the Plume collection. It was hiding in a different spot. So this was in collaboration with Makeup on Your Radar 2. We have 4 5-pan palettes and it's like peacock themed, which is fun. Elegance. We have Effervescence, which is all iridescent multichromes. 2 of mine are broken. Extravagance. Again, I think the mattes have improved since this. The shimmers are absolutely beautiful. I am gonna keep this. And then I have a stack of brands where I only have like 1 or 2 palette from the brand. So I cannot let go of this palette. This brand shut down like 2 years ago, Beaute Beauty. And this is the Impressionism palette. They used to create palettes based on like art, visual art. This palette is one of my favorite colorful palettes in my collection. I love the formula. The shimmers are so smooth, so beautiful, and the mattes are super silky. I'm so sad that this brand shut down. I did also own, I think 1 or 2 other palettes from the brand, which I have decluttered since, but this one I can't let go. I can't let it go. I need to keep it. I need to keep it. It's so beautiful. Do you guys remember Beaute Beauty? You have to let me know. I think it's time to let go of my last 2 Juvia's Place palettes. I've not used these since my last declutter. This one I actually decluttered 2 years ago and pulled it out of the declutter pile and brought it back into my collection because I was having a nostalgic moment. I'm not going to lie. This is the Saharan 2. Juvia's Place was the first indie brand I ever tried years ago. I remember trying their palettes and being like, wow, this is incredible for the price especially. It was like, you know, I don't know, 2017 or something like that. And I was just blown away. And the quality is really good for the price. Even I think it holds up even to this day, but I don't ever reach for this palette. I don't need it. The Bronze Rustic is a really pretty 6-pan warm neutral palette, but I have so many smaller warm neutral palettes now that I could reach for. So I think it's time to let these go. I have 1 palette from Sydney Grace. This is the Tiny Marvels palette in collaboration with Mel Thompson, who has since passed away. One of my favorite palettes in my collection. This came in at number 1 for the, I think, ranking my palettes from 2022, whatever the first year I did it was. This palette is absolutely gorgeous. This was a gift from a subscriber. Thank you, Renee, so much. I really want to try more from Sydney Grace because the formula of the mattes and the shimmers are so beautiful. Mel did such a good job creating this color story. It's neutral. It's got muted pops of color. The quality is so incredible, and it is a good memory piece to have her by. So I definitely want to keep this in my collection. By Us is a sister brand of Odensai. So I know there's a lot of confusion about what's going on. The owners that own Odensai also own this brand. So it's technically not the same brand as Odensai, but it's owned by the same people. Does that make sense? I hope so. So this is the Garden Busters palette from BYO Cosmetics. And this isn't my favorite palette, I'll be honest with you, but it is the first palette. Oh, here comes Ringo. I don't even know if you saw him, if he came into frame or not. Oh, there's his tail. Anyway, this is the first palette from the brand. So every brand has to put out their first palette and kind of go from there. I don't love the packaging on this. I think the shimmers are really pretty. Really, really pretty. I think the mattes are actually too pigmented. They're hard to build on top of each other. They're hard to blend sometimes. So I'm not a big fan of the mattes, but the shimmers are very pretty. I will say that. Looking forward to seeing what they're gonna come out with in the future, but I definitely wish they would come out with less bulky packaging and maybe improve their matte formula a little bit, but I am gonna keep this palette. I have DYVOR Cosmetics Gloomy Gardens. This is the only palette from the brand that I own. I love this packaging. Love this packaging. I fell in love with the packaging when I saw it on Instagram. I thought it was so beautiful. So this is the color story on the inside. I think this is good. I think some of the mattes are a little sheer. And the shimmers are very beautiful, but they are a little bit on the kind of textured side, which is just not my favorite, but they are very impactful on the lid. Like, they are the star of the show for sure. I like this color story. I think it's really pretty, but yeah, we shall see. I definitely want to try more from the brand in the future. I think it is time for me to let go of the Nudie number 2 from Laura Lee Los Angeles. Gosh, I've had this for so long. I love this palette. I actually used it to death when I had it when I first got it. It's a great palette. It's good, user-friendly mattes. The shimmers are pretty. There's some more like just kind of standard, very smooth 2018 type shimmers. There are some more impactful, kind of shiny, shimmery, I don't want to say sparkly, but you know, little shinier shimmers. We've got a deep matte. We've got some lighter mattes. I think it's a good palette, but like, I don't reach for this. There are other neutral palettes in my collection that I'll reach for over this. And then the last palette we're going to talk about, is this true? No, that's not true. That's not true. I have some more palettes here. So one of the last palettes we're going to talk about is the Ensley Rain Groovy Garden palette. This is the only palette from the brand that I currently own, although I did order the Light in Your Eyes palette that should be arriving to me tomorrow. I'm very much looking forward to trying that palette because it looks so beautiful. And I like this palette. I think the mattes are really nice. They are more on the buildable side. They're not overly pigmented, easy to work with. I like the variety of mattes here. It's a really, really beautiful matte layout. The shimmers are, this one is more like red to orangey, but these three are green and these three have a very strong blue flip. So in my opinion, I don't really feel like these all go with these mattes. I wish there was maybe only 1 or 2 or 3 multi-chromes and then some standard shimmers. This is just my preference. There's nothing wrong with this palette. But I like to look at the shimmer and know what I'm going to get. And then maybe if I want to play around 1 or 2 fun shades, I can do that. But I don't know, they all just kind of shift in a way that doesn't really make sense with all of these mattes. So that's just my 2 cents, but I am going to keep the palette. It's pretty new to my collection and I do still like it, and I'd like to keep trying more things from the brand, and I'd like to keep that in my collection. I found another ColourPop palette. I have not used this yet. They sent this to me in PR, I don't know, whenever they re-released this collection, which I think was in the summertime. This is the Winx Club Just Like Magic palette. I can already tell this is that larger circle pan format, like the Pokemon, like the Naruto palette, where it is pretty hard pressed in the pan. So I don't know how much I'm gonna like this quality, but I do want to keep it around because I want to try it. I have yet to try it. I have some palettes from Kaleidos. I've not tried any of these yet. They sent me a PR package that had an insane amount of products. They actually sent me even more eyeshadow palettes than this, but I decluttered some of them. I put them aside for giveaways and stuff like that. So let's go through these. So this is the Escape Pod palette. This looks so beautiful. So beautiful. I'm so excited. I have not even swatched this yet. Let me know if you've tried Kaleidos' eyeshadows. I've heard nothing but amazing things. Then I have 2 of the quads. Yeah, I think I set the others aside for giveaways. This one is Glowing Iris. It's like a cool toned purpley blue. Really nice packaging. And this one is Venus Trap, which is a cool tone neutral palette. Let's swatch this shimmer just for the hell of it. Ooh, wow. Ooh, that is beautiful. Well, now I'm excited to use it. Then I have these 2. What are these called exactly? Futurism palettes. They gave me a couple other ones, but I kept these 2. This is the one I've always wanted. This one, Sashimi City. It is like their neutral palette. The packaging on this is so cute. I want them to come out with more makeup. Like, they haven't really released anything new in a long time. Look at this palette. Is this not so stunning? Oh, so stunning. And then this is the Lunar Lavender palette. And this is obviously purples. I can't wait to try these palettes. I cannot wait. So these are all the palettes that I am decluttering. They don't even fit into frames. So love that for me. Love that for me. I am decluttering 34 palettes. Now that may not seem like a lot, but this is the most I've ever decluttered in a declutter video. And it is already, I can already tell that it is freeing up so much room in my drawers, which is my main goal because it was getting very tight. It was getting very tight. And I'm keeping 256. Okay, listen. I have no excuse. But I am so glad to be getting rid of these palettes, finding better homes for them. That is a win for me. All right, and that is it for this palette collection and declutter. This is a long one, so thank you so much if you stuck around to the end. I so appreciate you. Let me know your thoughts on any of the palettes in my collection. What are some of the palettes in my collection that you really want, that are on your wish list? Are there any that I have that you love? I would love to know. Let me know your thoughts, and I will see you very soon in another video. Bye.